Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Turning Point Podcast. We are on episode number 10 now. We've done 10 of these things. My name is Ben, and I'm joined here once again by Lewin. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I just had a little freak out for a second there because I thought I wasn't recording, but no, it's fine. We're all good.
Would have been amazed if you weren't.
Yeah. And do you know what's exciting about this episode, Lewin? Let me tell you something exciting about this episode.
Okay.
We got a whole new look happening. We got a whole new vibe going on this episode.
Big vibe and different now.
Yeah. We got some new logos. We got a new kind of overlay thing for the video version of the podcast. It's all kind of happening. We got some intro music possibly that I haven't picked yet at the time of recording this, but hopefully it's there. Otherwise, I'll just cut this bit out if it's not. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, no, it's looking good. We're a little more professional now. You know what I mean? Like, just kind of add that. Just extra, I don't know. Just
flair.
adds. Yeah. Just a bit of extra flair to the episode. Make it look a bit more better and professional. But like, the thing is like the original logo. I'll tell you a funny story about the logo. It's not really a funny story, but whatever. The original logos and that were always meant to be temporary. Like, they were never meant to be there. In fact, I was planning on replacing them ages ago, and I never got to it. So that's why here we are after 9 episodes, and we're now on our 10th. Now it's different, where before I should have done it like 6-7 episodes ago, to be honest. But one thing about the logo, and I had to change this, and I've changed it for everything now. You know how our old logo said, like the shortened version of the logo that I put in the corner of the thumbnail or whatever?
Yeah.
It said TP podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the TP was really bothering me. So I've now changed that, so it's now actually going to say the full Turning Point, but I've adjusted the actual logo so it can fit in the same kind of like take up the same amount of space, but still say the full words. So just TP was bothering me because I thought, coming back, the whole point of the redesign was to kind of just be a little bit more professional. Like, this isn't a professional podcast by any means. I mean, you can tell by the fact that we kind of bullshit our way through it most of the time.
No,
but
it's all planned. Joker review coming 7 months ago.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it might come soon. Who knows?
Maybe.
But yeah, so I thought we'd make it look, and I thought just TP. It just sounds like toilet paper.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, we probably just should have named this the Toilet Paper Podcast, because then it would make sense. But I thought we'd get rid of the TP and just keep it as Turning Point and be a little bit more professional. So hope you like that.
I do.
I hope everyone else likes that, and I hope everyone likes the music that I picked for this episode that will now be the intro at the start of every one of these podcasts, because I don't know what it is yet. But I hope everyone likes it. Yeah, but I mean, the things are, so like I might have change it a bit. Like, for example, the overlay, it's just a simple overlay for now, but I'd like to kind of maybe update it a little bit. And, that's kind of something that I'm not 100% on yet. But the logo, it looks good. And I like the back, the black, like what am I saying? The back black brick background. It looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really tough to say. I had to kind of get the words around that. But we got we've had a couple of big episodes. We got a bit of a chill one this week. And by chill, I mean I'm aiming to try and keep it shorter than the other episodes, so we'll see how it goes. But
a chill episode. We've gone really heavy on the topic at the end.
Yeah. We're like, it's just be a chill episode 3 hours later. The last episode on The Last of Us 2 went for over 3 hours and 15 minutes, so I ended up cutting quite a bit of it out to get it under 3 hours.
That's fair. It's a fun episode.
Yeah, I was talking to Jacob because we were actually playing some Last of Us multiplayer the other day,
Nice.
and I was like, "Oh, have you listened to it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Look, I've cut some of your parts out," and I was like, I felt bad, but I was like, "Look, I'm really sorry, but it's just it's the parts that I've cut out is just you saying the same shit you've already said." So I'm just cutting them out to tighten it up a bit. That was a nightmare episode. Like that's the only episode we have done that I have actually had to go through and edit the entire thing from start to finish. Because normally I either don't edit them or I will like I'll cut out the beginning and end or whatever, or I might cut out some like certain segments, like say where like one of us has left the mic or we've had like issues or whatever with Discord.
Oh yeah.
But like this was one I actually had to go through from start to finish and actually edit. And the reason why was because both Jacob and I were in the same room, and you would have known this being on Discord.
Yes.
But because we were in the same room, there was echoes from each other's mics.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't really have a proper setup, because that's, we usually do it over Discord, so it's not like a proper setup designed for multiple people in the same room. So I had to actually go through and like mute Jacob and my mic throughout the entire episode, depending on who was talking. And there's some parts I got lazy and just left it. So if you actually listen to the old episode, there's like a couple of parts throughout it where you could just hear a bit of an echo, but I'm like, whatever, But yeah.
Interesting to record, but I enjoyed that episode a lot, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think next time we get a guest on it, it's like someone physically going to be here in the studio, which is at the moment my bedroom. If someone's actually here, I might set up them in another room, so then that way there's not going to be that echo, I think. This is a good thing about having two computers. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But this episode, got a bit off topic there. This episode, we are going to be talking about The Dark Knight. We needed a filler episode, and I've been thinking about watching The Dark Knight for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And I just thought, fuck it, why not, And apparently, you reminded me that it was in cinemas again at the moment.
I got
so I thought,
the email last week, and they were like, yo, we're doing the whole Batman trilogy. I'm like, I don't want to go to a theater during COVID times, but I'm not passing up The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I think The Dark Knight is worth getting the Peroni pandemic for.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But that's cool. I'm pretty excited, and I mean, I guess it's just because they have nothing to play at the moment as well. So they're like, oh, let's just do everything. Yeah, there's like some cinemas up here that are like, hey, we're going to be playing Star Wars: A New Hope.
Oh damn, I'd love to see that in cinemas. Fuck.
And I'm like, good. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about that. And this will be kind of like what we do with some of our filler episodes. So at the moment, we've got kind of like our Edgar Wright stuff that we're going through, which we'll kind of do all the way up until whenever his film is set to come out next year.
April next year, I think.
Yeah, so we got a bit of time.
Yeah.
But then also, I was just thinking we could do some just random movies and stuff. And I want to try and keep the filler episodes related to something that's going on. So like the one reason I chose The Dark Knight for this episode was because I wanted to watch it and I haven't seen it in years. But another reason why I chose it was because, you've got the whole, you've got the Batman coming out next year, possibly.
Christopher Nolan film coming out this month.
Yeah, there's a Christopher Nolan film coming out. It kind of just...
And next year.
It kind of just... Exactly, Robert Pattinson. So it's kind of works itself out. So that's why I chose it. I did actually want to do the original 1989 Batman film, actually, just because I haven't seen that in so long, and that would be just such a fun episode to do. But we'll come back to it at some time, maybe next year. We can talk about that when the Batman comes out, leading up to it, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what we're doing this episode. But before we get into it, before we get into the meat of what we're doing this week, I've got some news. We're going to do our famous news segment that we occasionally might do. Whenever there's news. The last time we did it was our Time Lord Victorious. We ended up spending 40 minutes talking about that.
We don't have enough material this week to do that.
Yeah. So this week, it's more Doctor Who related news, but it literally just came out the other night. I think it was like around 2 a.m. something like that.
Send me the fucking message.
I sent you a message literally as I found out. But yeah, so it's being confirmed that Christopher Eccleston is returning to the role of the Ninth Doctor in a series of audio adventures for Big Finish, which when I saw this, because okay, so I'll give you a bit of context, Lewin.
Yeah.
So the BBC official Doctor Who Twitter channels, whatever, the Twitter page teased an announcement coming. They didn't say what it was. They didn't say anything. They were just like, "Oh, we've got a big announcement." You know, I think it was the day before. They're like, "We've got a big announcement at like this time tomorrow or whatever." And they teased it with an old promotional image for Series 12. So everyone was kind of like, "Oh, does this mean we're getting a release?" Like when a release date or a trailer or anything for the upcoming festive special, or just anything like that, because you know, like you feel like it would be about time for something like that to
Yeah.
come out, right?
I'm guessing it's going to be
Um,
Christmas or New Year's, but whatever.
yeah, it'll be one of those two. But because we still have no release date for that special yet, it's just like, oh, it'll be a festive special. We just don't know. So everyone was like, oh, this is gonna be interesting, or you know, maybe it might have been some Series 13 news, or just anything really. But because they used Series 12 promotion for it, everyone just thought it was related to the series. And then there was apparently a leak of what the announcement would be, because people were posting on that post saying that it's probably just going to be the announcement of the Ninth Doctor in Big Finish. But I didn't believe that, because I was like, one, it was a leak, and two, I was like, yeah, right, okay. Like I mean, I know Christopher Eccleston's been warming up to the role, but I highly doubt he's coming back. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, whenever it was, I was flipping through YouTube on my phone before I went to bed, right? And the Doctor Who channel has a new video up, and I'm like, oh, this was like, you know, 5-6 minutes ago, whenever it was. I'd watched it, and it's like, oh yeah, Christopher Eccleston's coming back, and I'm like, oh god damn it, they actually did it,
Bad man.
you know. It's crazy. Like, so I've actually got the press statement here. Like, so the trailer was nothing. Like, it was just an
It was
announcement,
like
little
the
video.
classic time vortex.
Yeah, it was.
Quickly just say before you get into
Mm-hmm.
the new Doctor Who logo in that time vortex looks fucking weird.
I actually thought it looked alright. But no, I can say I just think the new Doctor Who logo just looks weird in general.
It
I'm not a big
like
fan of it.
I like it personally, but just in that time vortex, I'm like, nah, don't do that.
Don't mix the eras up. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair. But yeah, no, there was just a little like opening title sequence kind of recreation kind of thing, just something a little cool just to announce it. But yeah, so essentially what's happening is after 15 years, and like you know, a lot of like Big Finish announcements are never teased by the Doctor Who page. Like
Yeah.
the only one I can really think of was the Time Lord Victorious, because that was a big thing. A lot of the time, the Doctor Who page would just be like share Big Finish's press release or whatever. They wouldn't really go into it that much. I think maybe they might have done something for John Hurt coming back to do Big Finish. I'm pretty sure they might have did something years ago, but for the most part, they just share what Big Finish posts
It was,
rather than like promoting it. But this was like fully something they teased, you know,
yeah.
for like a day beforehand. They teased this big announcement. So like, this just goes to show you that normally Big Finish news is just kind of like, oh yeah, cool. You know, it's like it's
That
not
was
big
time
news,
vortex.
right?
It's like cool. We're getting more
Yeah,
things we like.
you know, we're getting more, you know, David Tennant and Catherine Tate, which is a box set I like, because I, you know me, like we talked about this before. I'm not big on Big Finish.
Hmm.
No pun intended there. I'm not really into it, you know, and I've listened to a few of the short stuff. Like I listened to the few short trips. I listened to a Peter Capaldi one. He's someone I would love to come to Big Finish, and I really hope he does soon. Both him and Matt Smith. On a sidetrack, before we talk about Christopher Eccleston, I feel like enough time has passed that I think Matt Smith could turn to Big Finish, and I really hope he does, because he always talks about how, you know, he misses the role and how he kind of regrets leaving at the
I
time he
think he's
did and stuff like
actively
that.
said that if they ask him to, he will do it.
Yeah, so I really hope they do. I mean, maybe, I mean, he's not really like a big movie actor, but he does star in a lot of stuff. You know, he just kind of does bits and pieces. So, like, I kind of hope that he would come back. I think you need to wait a little bit for Peter Capaldi, like, give it a few more years. But
There
I
should
would like,
be at least a one Doctor gap between the TV Doctor and the latest Big
yeah.
Finish Doctor.
But also, I think there needs to be a few years because, like, David Tennant didn't return to Big Finish. Like, when did he come back? It was what
20,
during,
so like
yeah, so during Capaldi's run. So
years of his departure.
yeah, so I think leaving it a bit of time, but I really would like to see Matt Smith return. I'd like to see the gang. Hopefully, they could get Karen Gillan back. I mean, Karen Gillan's a big movie star now, so you know, hopefully they could get her back. But like, I mean, at the moment, like COVID as well, like actors don't have anything else to do. You know, David Tennant and fucking Michael Sheen are doing their little like weekly
That
video
stage
things.
show.
Yeah, they get Dame Judi Dench in there sometimes, and David Tennant's just launched his second season of his
Yeah,
podcast as
someone
well.
asked me anything about that on Reddit earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So I love the name of his podcast. It's just David Tennant does a podcast with blank, whoever it is. But the first episode's with Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory. So
Yeah, who's actually a
um,
really good actor.
yeah, like Jim Parsons, great. I really like him, and I haven't seen him in anything else but Big Bang Theory, but I've seen like clips of like just brief little clips of him acting in other things. So I would like to, you know, check some of that stuff out. But yeah, like so that's really cool. But that's a bit of a sidetrack. But I just want more Peter Capaldi. That's all I really want. Just give me more of him. You know, like
Lost at this point.
Peter Capaldi's like what? He's like 60 something now. You know, like let's get him in before he dies.
I mean,
Let's just
Baker's like near in his 70s, and he's in his no, he's 60s. I think he's doing it.
Tom Baker's in his fucking. Was he in his 80s, 90s now?
And he's still running.
Yeah, I think he'll just keep doing it forever. Like, I really... Tom Baker will be in, like, 10 years' time. Will be, like... You know, he'll be, like, 110 years old and still doing them Big Finish audios, you
I
know?
like the way he went about it. He's like, nah, I want a break from Doctor Who. Completely avoided the Five Doctors special.
Mm.
And then he's been caught back in the role ever since.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because, you know, like, I mean, at the time, especially for him, you know, he, I think, wanted to move on to other things.
He was Doctor for 7 years, and also his final season was a bit too much.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was issues between him and John Nathan Turner and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Interesting how history repeats itself with Christopher Eccleston and the production of Series 1. But, yeah, and we can circle back to that in a sec. But, yeah, like, the Five Doctors was only literally, like, a year or 2 years after he left.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I guess it's understandable that he didn't return. But, you know, he came back years later in, like, the small little dimensions in time and whatever. But then, yeah, he's been kind of doing that Big Finish. And, like, the Fourth Doctor box sets are, like, some of their most popular, most successful box
I've
sets.
listened. I got a cool little box set from Big Finish because
Yeah.
I actually started actively listening to their stuff.
Yeah.
It was old Doctors with new monsters, and the
Yeah.
one I've heard so far, I've heard two. I've heard Peter Davidson with the Weeping Angels. That was alright. It was pretty nice. And I've heard Tom Baker with the Vashton and Rada, and I
Okay,
actually
yeah.
really enjoy that one.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I would like to see more Vashton and Narada stuff, but I feel like it's a concept that's difficult to do
It's like the
over
Weeping
and over
Angels.
again.
You
Yeah,
can't
like
push it.
you can't keep doing it, so I'm kind of glad Moffat didn't keep doing that. Like there was the Adventure Games episode with the Vashton and Narada.
It was alright.
Well, I haven't played it yet. I've got the Adventure Games because I only played the first two, but I've got the Adventure Games and I'm going to play through it at some point for my channel, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, circling back to the actual news story.
Yes.
So it's kind of a big deal because, you know, it's been 15 years. You know, Christopher Eccleston has spent the better part of that 15 years being very vocal about his kind of... He's just his unwillingness to return. Let's just say that. You know, he didn't come back for the 50th anniversary. You know, I mean, and that could have something to do with, you know, because a lot of people at the time, like, because I think around the time of the 50th, it was kind of known that there were some issues, but it wasn't like that much detail. Like, I'm pretty sure the detail about what happened came out after the 50th, but at the time there were those kind of like, we did know that there were some issues between Christopher Eccleston and, you know, the BBC executives and whatnot. But with the knowledge we have now, you know, him returning for the 50th anniversary could have just easily been something like, you know, like he was blacklisted from the BBC for a while. You know, there's a lot of different stuff. Like I was actually reading recently, apparently him and John Barrowman didn't get along at all.
I read that too. Apparently, John found him a bit too grumpy
Yeah.
on set, and we all know how John Barrowman can be. He's
Yeah, I feel like that's a clash of personalities right there. Yeah. But yeah, so like, I mean, I was watching a video kind of breaking down the Big Finish announcement, and it's basically like the chances of him and John Barrowman doing these audios together are pretty low. But I feel like here's the thing. I think there's been enough time, and I think Christopher Eccleston's just as a person is, because we do know that at the time as well, Christopher, you know, was going through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why he doesn't
Shit time during the filming of that.
you know, yeah, and not only that, but also, I mean, I've seen some of the behind the scenes for the first season of Doctor Who, and can I say, it was very unprofessional, especially in the early, like the first block of filming. Like I was watching Russell T Davies's video diaries, and I am like, this is the most unorganized fucking thing I have ever seen.
It's
So I was like,
a fan's attempt to get a show back on the air.
yeah, I mean, look, all the credit to it, because like that would have been tough, but like that first block of filming, I think they were filming the Slovene episodes, and I think Rose, I'm pretty sure that was the first block of filming.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like looking at it, like even like they were talking about, like it was just a nightmare because apparently, yeah, like and I think the director of those episodes was the one that Christopher didn't get along with as well. But not only that, like the actual production was just a mess. And not only was it a mess, but things kept going wrong as well. So like, and I feel like that would have been, you know, like a big contributor. But also like, yeah, he had some personal stuff going on. Didn't get along with, apparently he didn't get along that well, didn't get along, but he had issues with Russell T Davies and as well, apparently, because I always thought it was like BBC management, not so much.
So did I, but like I think with Russell it was to a lesser extent because they still get along.
Yeah, I think because there's a lot of respect between those two because they also had previous work. I think it was just a lot of it came from the fact that Russell didn't intervene with a lot of the said issues that were going on set. But anyway, look, none of that really matters now because, you know, that's just like kind of like the context behind why this is such a big announcement.
I think the final nail in the coffin to everyone thinking, oh, it's over, was probably, I think it was like 3 years ago, maybe, when he said or maybe 2 years ago, it could have been somewhere in the last 2 years, there was a fan convention because he finally started doing those. And
yeah, that was in 2018.
Yeah, and he openly said in an interview, yeah, I would be interested in doing Big Finish.
Yeah,
and
yeah, no, he did.
One of the Big Finish people tweeted out, going, "You hear that, guys? He wants to do it. Send him all the messages saying you want it, pretty much." And then Chris Eccleston was like, "Okay, yeah, no, I'm not doing this anymore."
Yeah, I think as well, like, I mean, you know, because he was someone against doing conventions as well until he was finally talked into doing one. And then he realized, you know, because I think because he's been so hostile towards his experience on the show, he hasn't really had that kind of connection with the fans.
Yeah.
And then he started going to conventions, and I'll actually read the press statement because basically what happened was he was basically I thought it was Nicholas Briggs, but it wasn't Nicholas Briggs. It was actually, who was it? It was, sorry, I'm just preparing myself here. It was Big Finish's chairman, Jason High Ellery, I think his name is. But basically they were at Gallifrey 1, which is the big Doctor Who convention in, I'm just going to say in the UK. I was going to say London, but I don't think it's in London. But this was back in February this year, so before COVID times. And so the Big Finish chairman, Jason, was actually talking to him about the idea of coming back. And I'm going to read the quote here from Jason. It says, I first talked to Christopher about returning to the role of the Doctor at a fan convention in February this year. Christopher said he was enjoying meeting the fans and was pleased that his Doctor was remembered so fondly. I am so pleased that Christopher has decided to return to the role with us, and I'm aware and I'm excited to welcome him to the Big Finish family as we discover the new adventures of the Ninth Doctor. And then, Nicholas Briggs says his little bit as well. But what really is interesting is this quote directly from Christopher Eccleston here. It says, after 15 years, it will be exciting to revisit the Ninth Doctor's world, bringing back to life a character that I loved playing. Which is just interesting because, like, it's interesting to hear that I think, enough time has passed that he's kind of looking back on it with a different lens now. And I think, I don't think he ever hated playing the character. I think he always...
the circumstances around it.
Yeah, and so it's always left... I think it just left a sour taste in his mouth for such a long time. And it's actually nice to see him looking back on it now. Just being like, it was something I loved doing. And
look back at season 1. And he put in the work. There's never a moment where you don't believe that he is the Doctor, that he's not doing the absolute best he can.
Yeah, he's a professional. Like, I mean, he did the work. There was apparently some, and I was reading recently, there was apparently some issues between... because he wanted a little bit more creative control over the Ninth Doctor, because he has actually, and this I disagree with this, but he has stated that he didn't like the Ninth Doctor's character development.
Really?
And I'm like, really? You didn't like only the best character arc in the entire fucking show? Like for the Doctor, I mean, specifically character arc for the Doctor. It's only like the Doctor's best character arc in the history of the show, and it's a nice clean arc that is resolved in one season.
I think that's the best part about it, is I'd argue that Peter Capaldi's character arc was just as good, but
it was also like disjointed, like there was a level of disconnect between each season. But yeah, no, I agree in the sense of the character arc, yeah.
But then you go back and, because that's 3 seasons, and then you go back and just watching the Doctor go from Time Lord, who has just come out of the worst thing he will ever go through.
Time Lord Victorious. No, it's not the Time Lord Victorious, but, yeah.
Following previous ideas. To accepting that he can exist with other people again, because he was a very lone wolf Doctor up until Rose, which legitimately all we see, to be fair, but you get that sense of scale that he's been on his own for fuck knows how long.
Yeah, and you kind of see it like, it's definitely, watching the Doctor in the early part, because like I said a few episodes back, because I'm rewatching the series, I still haven't finished series 2 yet. I've been meaning to, but I've just been distracted and busy. But, rewatching series 1 recently, there's definitely like that halfway point, like the big changing moment for that character is Dalek, but like you see it in the first half of the season. You see a lot, like the kind of decisions the Doctor would make, or like the things he says. You're like, now it's funny because at the time I never realized it, and it's actually only the recent rewatch where I've been like, because I was really, because I've been thinking a lot, was thinking a lot about that character arc and how it develops, and because I also have a bigger understanding of like script writing and how like foreshadowing and things like that work. But like there's so many moments in those all the episodes preceding Dalek where I'm just like, holy shit, this is very out of character for the Doctor. Like not specifically his Doctor, but like there are moments in those episodes where you're just like, shit, like especially because what he becomes like, like later on with like Matt Smith and all that, you're just like, holy shit, like this just, wow, like this doesn't, like this is not in his character whatsoever, and you're just like, oh wow, okay. The big example I can think of is, and that's why him and Rose have like get at odds a lot of the time in those early episodes. It's because she's the one with the morals. Yeah, it's like, he's got morals, but he's kind of...
He's down.
Yeah.
He's
You know,
out.
it's the episode where he's just like, oh yeah, let's just let the Gelth in
Oh yeah,
and let them just use dead bodies. And Rose is like, no, like what the fuck is this? And he's like, no, it's a good idea. It's like recycling, you know. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. And like, you know, you just see it because I'm like, if this was Christopher Eccleston in the later part of the season, you know, he wouldn't have done that.
no, he wouldn't.
But yeah, no, it's such a good arc.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like there's not really much more to say about it, really.
No,
We don't know much about it yet.
I think that
We just
it could be fake, but I think like one of the stories is going to be a Cyberman story, which should be interesting because
hopefully cool. I wouldn't mind seeing the cyber as long as it's not the Cybermen. Just because I'd like to keep some continuity within the show a
yeah,
bit.
because 10 was the first one to make the Cyber
Yeah,
one.
so maybe like the classic Cybermen or something. Do like the 80s Cybermen. But yeah, so we don't know a lot about it. We just know that there'll be 12 audio adventures across 4 box sets, with Volume 1 releasing next May in 2021.
And I pre-ordered them all.
Yeah, nice. There's no announcements on other details, story details, cast details, anything. But I really hope we get some similar, because you know we've had the 10th Doctor and Donna. We've had the 10th Doctor and Rose. So I'd really like,
I've listened to a couple of the
hope,
horror stories. That's good fun.
yeah, hopefully Billy Piper comes back. I'd like to see he get more Ninth Doctor and Rose, I think. And if you know they can get John Barrowman back as well, that'd be great. Get
They
the trio
could
back.
get See, they did this thing with the Fourth Doctor because we all know, we might all know, the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, was
Yeah,
married to Roman
Lala
Lower
Lala
Ward.
Ward. Yeah,
They got divorced, and it was not pretty.
yeah,
It was really bad to the point where they refused to be in the same room together. So that's how Big Finish worked around that. They were never in the same room together.
yeah, yeah,
So if we
yeah.
have
So
to
like, I feel,
change on that,
yeah. So I mean, yeah, they could just do that because like that's the thing, and plus right now they'd all be working remotely anyway.
mm,
So especially with the COVID situation in the UK at the moment, they'd definitely be working remotely. So yeah, they could easily just do that. But yeah, no, that's exciting. So hopefully it turns out good. I
yeah,
really hope it does. I think it'd be cool. I like to see maybe some of the Ninth Doctor. And I think this would be a good opportunity as well for them to really expand upon the Ninth Doctor a little bit, and you know maybe we might get a different, I guess, version of the character in a way.
I want
Um,
a mix match of things. I want the Ninth Doctor before Rose, to,
yeah,
where he's just fucking not there, you know. Um, but
straight up not having a good time.
yeah, pretty much that. And I want Ninth Doctor with Rose and Ninth Doctor off by himself occasionally during the Rose session.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. And I just want the trio at the end.
Yeah,
Also, give me Mickey. Let's bring Mickey into it.
let's bring
I
Knock.
want a Mickey
I love
story.
Man, rewatching
Um,
season 1 through 4 and watching Mickey, and I'm like, I gave you too much of a bad rep. I really
yeah,
like
he's
you, Mickey.
yeah. I mean, I like how his character evolves. You know, as the show, especially in season 2, you know, they really, you know, change his character quite a bit. You know, he goes from being that bumbling idiot in the first episode
To
in
have his
Rose to
line
being like
like,
just this big badass in the fucking season 4. Oh, it's great. Yeah, no, I'd definitely love to see more Mickey and Nine. I think that'd be kind of fun.
oh yeah,
Um, Also, just for shits and oh no, actually, I was gonna suggest bring back Adam for the lols,
he's
but
actually in one of the Big Finish audios with Nine, like, but there's one of those ones where obviously Christopher Eccleston doesn't
yeah,
voice Nine. He is in one of those, so they can find a way. There was also that
yeah,
weird ass comic for the 50th where he kidnapped all the companions. Because,
yeah. Does he become like a villain or some shit?
yeah, pretty much.
Nice. But yeah, that's a cool little thing. So I just thought we'd start the episode on
If
that.
you
But yeah, you
can't
can
tell, I'm
pre-order
excited for this.
the you can pre-order them on the Big Finish website, both digitally or physically. So that's pretty cool. And you know, I do want to try and get into some of the Big Finish. There's a lot of it I'm not in. It's just so. I was actually saying to you, like, it's just so overwhelming.
It is.
Um,
And that's
so
why
I'm
I
really
so
thinking
much
of just
trouble.
Yeah, like I don't think I'm gonna jump too much into the Eighth Doctor, and it's the simple reason that the Eighth Doctor is just a clusterfuck of continuity. That I'm just like, I need kind of like a point to jump on with the Eighth Doctor where I don't have to worry about anything that's come before it, and I feel like
Been
where the Eighth
following
Doctor,
a visual guide for that, and it's helped so far.
yeah,
The fact that
but and it's the same with the Time War because the Time War stuff is quite expansive now.
that is what I'm
Um,
worried about because I want to listen to the Time War stuff, but
yeah,
it is
between the War Master stuff and the Gallifrey series and whatever the War Doctor and whatever the fuck else they've done, it's a lot, and I don't want to jump on board, but I have been thinking about maybe doing the David Tennant and Catherine Tate ones, and
the
um,
Terran Rose ones are pretty fun.
yeah.
I haven't
So I
listened
th-
to the Catherine Tate ones yet.
So I think I might jump on board, and like this one because I was reading because it's billed like it's labeled as the Ninth Doctor Adventures. They're usually the standalone ones, that don't really have this big overarching story across box sets of content. So yeah, no, I'll be pretty keen. I might jump on board with this, and I might try out the David Tennant ones and stuff before this releases. But yeah, I think this is a good jumping on point, especially because I feel like this is why I think they really push this announcement because I think it's such a big thing to have him come back after 15 years that I think even people who don't listen to Big Finish now are probably going to jump on board with this because it is more of the Ninth Doctor,
The
in
Big Finish is
his.
having a real good year.
Yeah, they are. 2020 has not affected them.
They've
Um,
been like, yeah, we've got this massive multimedia event. You can read the books, but hey, you can listen to us. And you're like, oh, damn, maybe I
yeah,
will. And then they're like,
yeah,
look, we got Christopher Eccleston back. And you're like,
yeah. Fucking the madmen over a Big Finish,
I,
honestly.
I praise them for all they're doing. Even
Yeah,
if audio is not your cup of tea, they're doing good things for the fandom.
yeah. And like another thing as well, is I mean, they will do an inevitable. I mean, depending on how long Christopher does this, like it really depends on whether it's just going to be like a one box set thing or whether he's going to continuously do it. Um, but like, I feel like they're eventually going to do the whole just crazy shit that they do over a Big Finish, and they'll probably have like River Song in there at some point and
I
fucking.
would love Nine meeting River.
Yeah, I mean the like, and again, I don't really have the context for the River side of the audio adventures and where she appears because I know she appears and meets multiple doctors and whatnot,
He's in a lot
but
of
like, yeah, I don't really know the context behind that to explain why the Doctor doesn't recognize her in Silence of the Library, because I've never listened to him. I probably should look it up. I hope it's maybe some because I know there was some adventures with the Eighth Doctor where they never actually met. Like they were in the same story, but they
yeah.
never met each other during the story.
Also, if
But
you
I'm
know that the Eighth Doctor loses his memory frequently.
Yeah, but also I'm pretty sure she's met like the Sixth Doctor and that as well.
And the fourth.
I mean, yeah. So it's like yeah, like how do you explain? Like, does the Doctor just lose his memory every time they meet? Because I'm pretty sure they just went past that. Because I think initially when they brought her in to interact with other Doctors, it was that Eighth Doctor story where they never met each other, so they kind of kept that continuity there. But then now I think they just don't give a fuck and they just have her meeting every Doctor and all that.
There's probably some hand wavy explanation. I haven't listened to the River series, but
Yeah, I really hope they don't. But it'd be cool meeting Nine. But yeah, they just have to keep the idea that the Doctor doesn't recognize her later on.
especially that close to 10. Like, you can
Yeah,
excuse the Doctor forgetting that one person 1,000 years ago, but then when it's like, yeah, this was like 3 years ago, you're like, oh, you should remember this.
yeah. But yeah, that's the Ninth Doctor coming back, so that's pretty exciting. So yeah, we'll definitely jump on board with that. But now I think we'll move on. So Lewin, what
Yes,
have you been up to lately? What have you been doing?
right. Besides work,
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all there at the moment, aren't we?
yeah, we pretty much are. Let's- I'm just gonna continue the train. I have been listening to the Eighth Doctor stories.
Hey, that's good. That's so let's do it again, but let's have like a segue into it. So, you should like segue into the catch up segment.
Speaking of
Speaking of Big Finish,
a big finish, we normally do our catch-up segment around now. So I've been listening to Big Finish's Eighth Doctor audio stories.
I'm not going to edit any of that out. That was smooth. Nice. I love it. Okay. So you've been listening to.
Yeah, I've like I said in the previous segment, I've got a visual guide that
Yeah.
details everything. There is a shit ton of stuff, but the stuff I've listened to is free on Spotify, so I was like, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I've listened to some of them.
All of
I
his
think it was the Dalek
stories.
one I was listening to.
Blood of Daleks or Time of Daleks?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember what it was called.
Um, so yeah, I've almost finished. I call it season one or arc one of his stories. I'm in the very
Yeah.
final story, Zagreus, which is
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the
um,
the that's like the weird one where he ends up in like that other dimension or whatever.
yeah. So that's what it's leading into, and then I think all of the second season of his audio stories are there.
Yeah.
Or I want to get through this because these audio stories are all like four parts. Each one's like half an hour each. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's 2 hours of story, and much like classic Doctor Who, which I'm also working through, I'm now midway through Tom Baker. Um,
Nice. Nice.
you know how there's always that episode when not much happens, and you're like, this could have been
Yeah, yeah.
episodes.
Yeah, especially back in like the very, very like early stages when they used to do like 6 parts per episode.
Yeah, that was a real
And
problem with the John Pertwee era. And
yeah.
I don't care for like three of these episodes. They go nowhere. I'm so used
Yeah.
to 45 minutes to an hour. It's
Yeah, but also like I mean, I think that is also a thing like they were trying to stretch it out a bit too much because there's definitely a lot of like especially the first three doctors
Mm.
and even Tom Baker to a point. I think there was just so many stuff where they would do like 6 episodes, sometimes they do 8-part episodes.
Yeah, and like
War Games is 10 parts.
what the weird thing from what I've heard is I've never seen War Games, but
Yeah.
everyone says that it's like the fucking pinnacle besides Caves of Androzani. And I'm
Oh
like,
no, yeah, no, it's really good, but like the point is like it just seems like these stories are stretched out and
oh
like
yeah,
I feel like you could just condense them and get rid of like all these episodes. And I'm really glad in the 80s they kind of started just moving away, like
yeah,
kind of late Tom Baker era, that they kind of started moving away from that. In fact, I'm pretty sure the majority of the Tom Baker era are
yeah.
usually just
Mid
4-part
range, the
stories.
only the season finale. I'm up to season 14 because obviously I'm going through the collection box sets, so I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
every single one to reference. Um, season 14, all but one of the stories is only four parts, and they tend to be pretty alright on there. It still stretches a tiny bit.
Yeah.
When it's like 6 parts, it almost feels like someone was like, we can have a sick cliffhanger. And then someone else was like, oh, but we also need to have like an entire thing explain this. And they're like, let's put another sick cliffhanger and then a third one. And you're like, you didn't need this many cliffhangers. You could
Yeah.
have done a mid-episode reveal.
Yeah, and I did find that actually listening to some of the Eighth Doctor stuff that I
Yeah,
have listened to on Big Finish is there's just some episodes where I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like,
you get
I remember because
halfway through.
I was editing or whatever. Yeah, I was editing or whatever it was I was doing at the time, and I just had it playing in the background, and I was just like, I was not even really paying attention to it to be honest because nothing interesting was happening.
Yeah, it starts
um,
out good and it ends good. But the middle part is where you're like, what happened?
yeah.
There is a lot of the
Um,
episodes where I'm like, okay, I listened to this story. How did this play out?
Yeah, that's I think another reason why I don't want to get into a lot of that like older Big Finish stuff as well. Like I think I'd rather just do the newer stuff. That's and when I say newer stuff, I don't mean like the big box sets that are all fucking interconnected and whatnot. I just mean like the newer stuff, like the 10th Doctor Adventures and that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. I'd
where it's
rather
only
do that.
50 minutes to an hour, and you're like, it's one condensed story. You're like, beautiful.
Yeah. yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, but that's cool. How's that go? So you're up to Zagreus.
Yep, so that's the last one out of, I think, 8 to 10 stories.
Yeah.
And then I'm moving on to the second season with Charlie, who I really like as a companion, and I don't want to
Mm.
see her go, but eventually I will. Much like I saw Sarah Jane go, and that was actually quite sad. Because I
Mm.
thought that when she left, it would have been like semi happy. No, she just left after the doctor didn't listen to her, and then he didn't fully comprehend what went on until it happened. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this was shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit rough, but oh, that's cool though. I'm
If,
glad you're getting in on
if
that.
at least
And
you listen to one of them, listen to Chimes of Midnight after listening to like the first one.
I've heard yeah, I've heard that's like a
I
good
was,
one.
it might be overhyped, and then I listened to it and I fucking loved it.
Yeah, I'll probably listen to them. Like, I think they're good things to play when I'm like doing other
Yeah.
things. But yeah, I definitely considering getting into it. I'll probably start with the newer stuff though, and then maybe work my way
Yeah.
back and maybe do some stuff if we get there. But again, as well, I could only really listen to whatever's free because I'm not paying money for Big Finish stuff necessarily at the moment. So we'll see what happens.
I mean,
Oh,
hey,
that's cool though.
how the private policy goes, but I can hook you up with my login if you want.
Ooh, ooh, yeah, all right. That sounds good. We'll talk about that a bit later
Yeah.
then. Yeah. So, what else have you been up to? What else have you been doing?
Um, I platinumed the Yakuza games that I kept saying I would platinum, so that was
Yeah.
pretty good.
So that's done. That's out of the way.
Pretty much done. I've only got the spin-offs left, and since they're not mainline, I'm not as fussed about doing them before 7 comes out.
Hmm.
So yeah,
How's your Yeah.
that was good.
How's your computer? What's going on there?
Computer is really nice. I like it.
Yeah.
It can't
Yeah.
handle Resident Evil 3 on Ultra, and nor would I expect it to, but it
Okay.
runs everything else pretty damn smoothly.
Oh, so mine can handle Resident 3 or Resident Evil 3 on Ultra. So what are your specs? What do you have? Because like I could see the model, but like I couldn't
Um,
obviously know the specs. So
it's
what?
like, hold up, it's I can tell you for sure what the graphics card is.
Mm,
It's an RTX. It's a NVIDIA RTX 2060 thingamajig with 6 gigabytes of video RAM, which is kind of what caps Resident Evil 3 there.
yeah.
And it's got shit, I can not remember.
Have you tried playing it though? Because mine says that it's
Oh,
too much,
I've
and
tried
but when I
playing it.
play it, it's fine.
Now, when I put it up to like everything max, it's like it chugs along a bit. And I'm
Ah, right, okay.
like, okay,
Because
that's
mine always say whenever I look it up, like whenever I adjust the settings to ultra, it's like, oh, it goes in because you know how in Resident Evil 3 it goes into the red, and
yeah,
it's like it's too much. Like 12. I think max is like 12 something gigs of video memory or whatever. Um, and yeah, whenever it goes up to that, it's like red, and it's like, oh, this is too much. But then I play it, and it's fine. It runs smoothly. So
yeah. Mine
whatever.
can run like high to ultra without all the added on stuff just fine.
Yeah,
I've only done the demo to test this out, so maybe the game itself is more optimized. Um,
yeah. So what one did you have? What card did you have?
the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060. So like
Okay.
just a couple of cards ago.
Yeah, right. Okay. So the one I've got is the GTX 1660 Ti, actually, because there's two. There's a 1660 and a 1660 Ti. So that's what I've got. I don't know anything about graphics cards, so I don't know where that sits in the range. But when I was like picking which graphics card I wanted for my PC, it was like right bang in the middle of the range.
Yep.
So I was like, I'll just get that because I don't think I need to spend an extra few $100s to get the top of the range, and I don't really want the bottom either. So I was like, I'll just get the middle.
Yeah.
And it runs literally everything. Like I haven't had any issues running anything at max
Have you
settings.
been
So
using
I'm like,
the experience, the NVIDIA experience
the
where they optimize the game or optimize the graphics card to work around the game?
I've got it. Yeah, um, I don't really use. I mean, yeah, like I've got it there, but I kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it automatically does it or not. I don't know. But if it does, then yeah, I guess.
Okay,
um,
I was just wondering if maybe that was why yours might be, but no.
but yeah, but like I mean, I mainly because I actually used like my Battlefront video that I did recently, my Battlefront mods video. I actually recorded with the video experience because I tried using OBS, and like OBS was fine, but there were some frame drops which I didn't like, which you can actually notice in the Mandalorian part of that video. So I just switched to just using the general. I was either going to use the Xbox capture software or just use Nvidia, and I just used Nvidia and it's quite nice. Also, one thing I like about Nvidia is on certain compatible games it's got the built-in photo mode. So it's actually got a photo mode for Battlefront 2,
Ooh,
which only works in arcade mode. So you have to be in arcade mode playing against AI
I mean, fair
for it
enough.
to work. But yeah, you can do like a full photo mode using the NVIDIA experience. You can move the camera around, adjust everything. Another thing is, and I did this for the thumbnail in my video, is you can actually add a green screen in using it. So you can actually set your photo up, right? And then you just put the green screen thing on and you can adjust where the green screen sits. So I made, for the first time in years, I actually made a thumbnail for my Battlefront 2 video, and I did that by just going into photo mode, taking stills of the characters that, like, so I did a still of Ahsoka, I did a still of Mandalorian, and I think it was a still of Ayla Secura, and then I just moved the green screen in and then keyed out the green screen so I could just put it in wherever I wanted in the thumbnail, and I was like, hey, this is
That's
actually
pretty
really
cool.
good. Yeah. But yeah, so mine, what other specs does yours have?
Uh,
What's the
it's got a ninth gen Intel i7 octa-core
Okay, yep.
processor. It's got 16
Yep.
gigabytes of RAM, so not too high, but high enough to get me anything really. Like,
I mean, it's like the minimum you want, really.
yeah,
You know,
it's
like I mean, I use mine for video editing and like I mean, I could go with, 32 or whatever. But I was just like 16 gigs will be enough. Like I don't need anything more than that.
mm,
And if I decide I do it at a later stage, I can just get a new, like, just get a new, like, just get a new one, like, just get new RAM, like, just upgrade it.
see,
Like, it
that's the
doesn't matter.
handy thing. Now that I've got this one, even though it's pre-made, it is optimizable. So if I ever want to upgrade it, I can. So
Yeah, exactly. Like mine is a Dell, but it's a custom Dell one, so it's not like you go and just buy the computer from Dell. Like you actually have to select what components you
yeah,
want. So that's mine. But yeah, it's just upgradable. So I can just literally like I can. I'm pretty sure I can actually get the guys at Dell to upgrade it for me. Like I can just get a thing with them and be like, hey, I just want to do this. Send my PC off to them, because they're here in Sydney, and just send my PC off to them. Get them to fix it, do it for me, and then send it back.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of PCs, did you watch Henry Cavill building his PC?
I have not, but I've heard everyone loves it.
It's honestly the greatest thing. It's so good. He's just like it's not even really much of a video. It's just him sitting there just building his PC. Um, but yeah, it's great. It's just so cool.
So yeah, it's going well. I like it,
That's
and
good.
that's really all I've been up to. What have you been up to?
Oh, me. I've got a few things. One, I just want to talk about it briefly because I was going to bring it up at the start of the video, just in like the housekeeping, but I kind of forgot. So I have just mentioned it, but yeah, I just released my a new video on my channel. It's a Battlefront 2 gaming video. Doing some gaming. That's what I call my series. It's essentially just me just fucking about in games for a bit. But yeah, so I decided to do a mod video because I got my PC, and I'm still working on my Eternity Clock video, and I was like, I just want to get something out, so I thought I'd just record a bit of gameplay with some mods and stuff, and it's really good. It turned into a bit of a clusterfuck because the mod that I have for it is called it's called Hero what's it called? Hero Conquest, which is essentially the supremacy game mode, but all with heroes. So the entire AI is heroes, and boy, is that a clusterfuck of a game mode. And I had a heap of hero mods on as well at the same time, and it just broke the game because there was so many AI using the hero mods, and so whenever I tried to use the Qui-Gon Jinn mod, his head just wouldn't load. Um, And then I tried to use, there was a Cal Kestis mod that replaced Yoda, and every time I loaded in, it was just invisible because there was too many Yodas in that thing, and it just broke the game. So I ended up just to test those mods out. I didn't want to like quit the game and reset all the mod loading and everything, so I just went to arcade mode. So the last part of the video is just me in arcade mode on Naboo, just fucking about with some heroes, and it's great. It's a good video. I recommend, if you're listening to this on Spotify, go ahead to my YouTube channel and check that one out. But that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making that video and a lot of fun playing with some mods. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of like virtual photography as well. So I've been taking a lot of Jill Valentine pics in Resident Evil 3. Using the what do they call it? It's like the RE3 framework, which like, so when you add it into the game, it gives you a free camera, but it also allows you to play the entire game in first person, including the cutscenes. Which is pretty weird, but that's kind of fun. Watching the cutscenes is very odd because obviously cutscenes are designed a certain way. So like the opening bit when when Nemesis raids Jill, like punches through Jill's wall, and then after like picks her up, and he shoots him, and she shoots him, and then she runs out the door. When you're playing that in first person, she just runs through the door, rather than like she doesn't open it or anything like that. She just runs through the door because the cutscenes are like, the actual environments are designed differently, obviously, depending on what part. I mean, you see it all the time, and if you use a free camera during a cutscene, you'll see the lighting change depending on who the camera's facing.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. So it's not the greatest when like there's a few flaws with the cutscene part of it, but you can turn that setting off, so you can just have the cutscenes play out like normal, and then just gameplay is all in first person.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It's a really interesting way to play those games. It doesn't play. It's not as smooth as say like Resident Evil 7.
It's fine with it in mind.
Yeah, but it is still pretty good, and I definitely wouldn't mind doing a full playthrough like that. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of like virtual photography, taking pictures of Jill Valentine for Instagram and whatnot. So that's fun. But other than that, I've been watching Lucifer. So I'm currently on.
How is it?
Well, I started watching it either early this year or last year, whenever it was I started watching it. But I started watching it because he was in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event.
Yep.
So I started watching that. And I watched a bit of season 1 and was like, yeah, cool, I'm not really into this. But I just recently gone back to it and not rewatched, but continued watching through season 1. And now I'm almost at the end of season 2. And yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun show to watch. It's basically just, it's essentially a crime of the week show, like, so each week, there's a murder or whatever. And, it's up to, Lucifer and the detective or whatever to solve it. But it's not, but there is these ongoing storylines for Lucifer and like, relating to heaven and hell and whatever. So like series 1's ongoing storyline was his brother, God sent his brother to Earth to get Lucifer to go back to hell, because the whole premise of the show is Lucifer was just sick of running hell, so he went to LA and is now a nightclub owner because he just wanted to get away for a bit and he didn't want to do it. So the whole like storyline for season 1 is like God's not happy about this because he's been there for too long, and so he sends his brother to try and take him back to hell. And then season 2's storyline is so far it essentially revolves around Lucifer's mother. And kind of like the history between Lucifer and God and his mother and all that, and kind of like what happened, because basically his mother's been imprisoned in hell because after God through Lucifer, like essentially like the way the show does it is they essentially God just kicked Lucifer out, and then like thousands of years later kicked his mother out as well. But there's like a bit of drama between them because Lucifer always thought that because his mother never did anything about it, about him being banished to hell, and never stood up to God or did anything about that when she was cast out to hell as well, Lucifer just did nothing, never acknowledged her existence in hell or anything. So there's like a bit of drama between them, but there seems to be some kind of ulterior thing going on with his mother on Earth. Um, but there's this great sequence where his mother's just like inhabiting, because the goddess doesn't have a physical form. She just keeps inhabiting all these different humans' bodies, and there's this actually quite hilarious sequence where she's like inhabiting all these different bodies, and then they just die, and then so she has to like keep body swapping. But it seems like she can only inhabit bodies that are already dead, but then they can't die again, otherwise she gets knocked out essentially.
Okay.
There's this guy that has like a heart attack, and he's just laying on the ground, and she inhabits his body, and he gets up and he's like wandering around asking for Lucifer, and he just runs in front of a bus. Doesn't she when I say he, she doesn't realize the bus is there, so he's just like looking at the crowd and then gets hit by a bus, and then she goes into some kind of like gang member who's in the middle of a shootout who's been shot and killed, and then he like the bullet wound heals and she wakes up and she's like whatever, and the guy that killed him is like, I thought I killed you, and then shoots him again. It's quite good, but yeah, the series is good. I'm quite enjoying it.
Okay.
There is like the ongoing character arcs between the Lucifer and the main character, and then there's like a demon character, and there's his brother. There's like a big moment in season 2 where, because his brothers failed to get him back to hell in season 1, one of his other brothers comes to kill Lucifer essentially, and there's basically this whole thing where Lucifer is forced to kill this person, and it kind of his other brother, and it kind of fucks him up for a bit. And the whole idea is behind it because the whole thing the show's trying to push is he's not evil. He's just he was just the ruler of hell, like not like the ruler of hell. He was just literally someone whose job it was to torture people in hell. Like that's his job, but he's not an evil person. And he's not he's never killed anyone. Like killing his brother is the first time he's actually killed someone. So it's kind of like whatever. But it's cool. They like play around with the angel and demon powers quite a bit. But the base premise of the show is each week there's a murder, and then it's about solving the murder. And sometimes that relates specifically to religion and the devil and whatever. Other times it's just random murders or whatever. But no, it's good. And it's got the guy from Tom Ellis, who plays Lucifer. He was in he played, what's his name? Was it Thomas? The doctor guy. Not the doctor guy. The guy in The Last of the Time Lords that Martha was kind of with throughout the episode.
Oh, yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the same actor, but he's really good. You can just tell he's having such a fun time playing this role, because Lucifer's just a very out there character to play, and like just watching any clips of him playing that character is incredible. Yeah, it's great. I love it. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm towards the end of season 2, and I'm moving on to season 3.
How many seasons?
Currently, there's 4 full seasons, and season 5 has been split into 2 parts. And season 5, part 1, actually starts airing on Netflix. Drops on Netflix at the end of this month.
Okay.
So I think they're dropping part 1 this month, and then I think part 2 is going to drop next year, maybe either later in the year or next year. Season 5 was actually meant to be the final season. But they've just confirmed that they're going to do a season 6. So I think the reason why they've split the series into 2 parts is because now they have to redo the ending to make sure... I'm pretty sure they're going to have to redo the ending to make sure it continues on to a season 6. But obviously because of the Peroni pandemic, they can't do that. So I think that's why they've split the season in half, and they're only doing half now and then half at a later date. But yeah, it's really good. I'd definitely recommend jumping on it. They're not big seasons as well. They're like 13 episodes.
Oh, easy.
So it's like pretty good to get through. And my favorite thing is he has a therapist. And his therapist like is just playing along with the idea that he's the devil, and all of that. But I've just watched an episode in season 2 where Lucifer actually reveals to her that he is in fact the devil, and it's not just metaphors and stuff that he's talking about. Like, it's actually all real, and it kind of just fucks the therapist up for a bit. It's great. But yeah, it's a good show. I'd recommend watching it just solely for Lucifer as a character alone. It's just incredible. It's a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been watching that. I've been playing some Resistance.
Saw that.
I now currently Jill Valentine is my most played character in that game. I just spent like literally a couple of days just leveling her up to kind of catch up to my other characters. And now she's my most played character. They've got a couple of new maps on there as well, which is pretty cool. There's a prison map now, which was introduced with the Jill update, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
No, not the Jill update. It was the Nikolai update.
Nickel?
They in May they introduced Nikolai's a mastermind.
Oh.
And they introduced a prison map with that update, which is a pretty good map. And then there's some newer maps as well, which are kind of the newer maps are like they're new maps, but they're like one of them's like a variation of one of the older maps. So it's like a lot of the parts of it are the same, but now there's different areas that have changed. So there's like completely new areas now. Like before there was like doors, like the spawn room, the old spawn room in the old version of the map, which is still in the game by the way. But it's now just a room, and there's like a corridor that goes off it now that you can run down. But it's pretty cool. And I've just been playing a bit of that, enjoying that. I will say that the loading times have significantly improved.
That's good.
So it doesn't take forever to get into a match now. I think the most I've waited in recent times has been maybe 3 minutes. So it's very quick now to get into games. I will say there is a bit of a balancing problem at the moment, and I think that's because think the masterminds are some of them are so overpowered that if you have a mastermind that knows what they're doing, you get fucked up pretty quick. Okay. Like you can have masterminds just put poison all in a room, fill it with so many supercharged zombies. The moment you open that door, you're just fucking dead. Like there's no way around it. But yeah, like, I mean, it's actually really difficult to win a game now, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that masterminds have been playing this game for a while now, and they know what they're doing now. But also, I do think some of the abilities, there's a little bit of balancing, I think, that needs to play out in future updates, which I'm pretty sure the dev team are aware of, and they're going to keep working on the balancing for it. But it's kind of good now, because before you used to be able to win a game pretty easily, especially against, like, you would lose games, but like most of the time you would lose due to sheer incompetence or the fact that the mastermind actually knew what they were doing. But back before, when I was playing it in April, you would kind of win most of the games as survivors, because it's it was just kind of like masterminds were lower level. They didn't really know what they were doing. Where now a lot of masterminds are now higher levels, and they've been playing it for ages, and they know the maps, and they have all unlocked all the like later level abilities and things, and it can be a clusterfuck at times. And I can tell you right now, there are definitely a lot of bullshit deaths where I'm just like, what the fuck? But I actually really enjoy playing it now. I think with the quicker loading times, and the fact that now it's actually incredibly difficult to win a game as survivors, I think really encourages teamwork a lot more. And really, because before people would just run around and do their thing, where now everyone seems to just stick together and maybe do the things. And like, even though no one's on comms, there just seems to be like this, when you have a good team, there just seems to be like this,
you know what you're doing. You'll get it.
It all just works, yeah. And I really enjoy it, and I've been enjoying playing that. That's been a lot of fun. And the other thing I've been playing is Fall Guys. I actually installed that the other night because it's free on PlayStation Plus.
Fucking fun game.
It's so good. I've only been playing it for a couple of days. I think I'm only like rank 7 or something. But it's such a fun game to play. And what I love about it, so like for those who don't know, Fall Guys is this new game. I don't know who the developers are, but it's published by Devolver.
Yeah.
And it's essentially this game show. Like, it's like similar to like those shows like Wipeout and like all of that kind of stuff, where it's like you have like there's like these physical challenges. I guess like the Wipeout would have been like the old version.
Probably the best example I could think of to give it. I
Yeah.
don't know of any newer.
Like the closing thing would be that Ninja Warrior show.
Oh yeah.
But it's basically like that. Except you play as these little, like, I don't know what they are. They're like little jelly bean things. I don't know. But essentially, it's basically taken the style of a battle royale game.
Mm.
In the sense that you start with so many players, and then each round it whittles down the player to one winner. And so it takes that style, but yeah, it's basically each round you've got a qualifier to move on to the next round. And most of the challenges are usually just some form of race where you've got to get from one end to the other, and there's just a bunch of obstacles in the way. A couple of them that's usually like. There's this one where there's like these seesaws, which I think is the best one. But you've got to like get on the seesaws and navigate getting across these seesaws to get to the other side. But of course, they're moving whenever players are jumping on them and changing. So it actually can be quite difficult.
You've got to wait for it to not be a death trap to jump onto.
Yeah, there's that.
There's one.
Yeah, there's one that's like, there's like these doors, but only like some of the doors are real and some of them aren't. So you got to like jump into them to see if they're real or not. And that one's actually quite interesting because you can take the strategy of just let everyone else hit the doors and then just follow whichever ones are open. But doing that, because they only let so many people qualify, it just ends up being a clusterfuck, especially towards the end where there's only like 3 or 4 doors. It just being a clusterfuck of all these people trying to get through the door at the same time.
Where when you hit the finishing line, it goes from 1 to 30 so quickly that you don't know if you're going to make it if you're in that tail of the group. I've had so many games where I just missed out. Like, I've crossed the finish line, but I've still been eliminated because someone hit that finish line just like that microsecond before me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, it's great. But yeah, there's all of that. And then some of the other games, one of my other favorite ones is there's like this row of like spinning platform things, and you got to kind of just navigate the spinning platform, dodging the obstacles and not fall off. Rollout, the one where it's like a cylinder and you've got
yeah, that one. There's that. There's a few other good ones. There's some also team-based objective games which are quite fun. Yeah, there's like Egg Scramble. The only ones I played, I don't know if there's more, but the only ones I played is there's the egg one, and then there's the ball one. And basically what happens with that is usually round 2. Sometimes it's the later rounds, but it will split basically whatever players are left into 3 teams, and then you would have a color, and then your job is to work together as a team to complete the objectives. And most of the time it's usually, have X amount, like you got to have as much eggs as possible or as much balls as possible in the section to move on to the next round, and the person with the least number, like the team with the least number, gets eliminated.
My favorite team ones, ones that you haven't played then, are there's a football one.
Yeah, I haven't played the football one. The only other team one I played was the tag one.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
With the tail.
I like tail tag.
Yeah. I don't know if is there a version of that game. There's 2 versions of that, right? Is there a team version and a free-for-all version?
There's a team version, a free-for-all version, and then there's the finale version.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Oh, yeah, I've seen the finale version. Isn't the finale version there's only one tail?
Only one tail, and that's all one of 2 game modes I wanted on.
Yeah, nice. Okay, because there's a race finale one where you've got to like get to the race across the track of obstacles and get up and grab the crown, and that's how you win.
Second there so many times it hurts my stomach.
Yeah, that's the one that I've almost won. I have full disclosure, I've never actually won one of these so far in my time playing. In fact, I very rarely even make it to the final round half the time because I'm also shit video games. But what I love about this game, and this is what I kind of want to bring up about it, is this game doesn't involve really a lot of skill. Like, there is a certain element of skill to it when you kind of like figure out the tricks you can do and whatnot. And like, once you get familiar with the games, you kind of, get familiar with how to play it. But it's not really a skill-based game. It's more of a game of just dumb luck, essentially. Because like, for example, like with that door race, for example, like you could be doing really well, but then you like you might jump up against a door that's fake, and then just all of a sudden you're just overtaken by a million people. There's like a bit in, I don't know if it's that level. No, it's the one where you've got to dodge the doors opening and closing, and there's
Yeah.
a bit where you've got like the goo on the track, right, and you've got to slide down and then jump across the gap
Yep.
to through one of the three doors. That is luck. There is no skill involved in that segment whatsoever. You just go down and you just jump across and hope for the fucking best.
I find that with that one, the best way to go with there is to aim for the one that's open
Yeah.
and then go down and it will close, and then by the time you're at the end of the track it will have opened again and then you can jump across.
Yeah, it
There is
doesn't always work out though.
though where there is like fucking alternating doors and then
Yeah.
there's a pole and the pole can go fuck itself.
Yeah, no, it gets you stuck so many times. But no, I like it. But yeah, it's not really like a skill-based game per
No,
se. It's
no.
more just like get in, have a bit of fun. And what I love about it too is,
Pick up and go nature.
yeah, like you just lose, you just quit, you just click play again, and you always find a game within, 30 seconds. It's very quick. So even if you do lose, you just jump on into the next game, and that's what I like about it.
You got work in 20 minutes? Well, guess what? You're probably not going to be doing that for this long.
Yeah, and even if you do make it to like round 4, you're usually not playing that game for 20 minutes, like
No, it's
usually even if you make it to the final round, it's been like maybe 10 minutes.
it's a good little. It's a very fun little game.
Yeah, it's very fun. I think, like currently it's the most watched game on Twitch. And I definitely think there's going to be a big online community for this game. I think it's going to be.
Hope so. I hope it doesn't die out fast because I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, I think it's just so popular, and it's in fact been so popular that like even the dev team were not expecting, how many people, because they've obviously been having server crashes and server issues, since launch, and I think obviously it's just because they weren't expecting, to have fucking millions of players playing it. Like, in fact, I'm pretty sure one of the developers said they were like, they were really only expecting, X amount of people to play the game. They weren't expecting it to be as big as it is. So there's been a lot of server infrastructure work going on. And it's been a big issue because the servers sometimes, it hasn't happened to me so much, but I think in the first, maybe couple of days it came out. Yeah, the servers were fucked. But
Halfway.
yeah. But what I do love about Fall Guys is whoever runs the Twitter account for that game, fucking gold.
Really?
Yeah, no, go check out Fall Guys' Twitter account. It's amazing. They even have a Twitter account for the server maintenance people now. It's great. But it's actually kind of funny because it's like one of those accounts where like, there's a lot of shit talking. So whoever's running that account, it's incredible. And I definitely recommend if you want a bit of a laugh, go check out Fall Guys on Twitter. It's great.
Someone in this house, we understand how seesaws work.
Yeah, it's a great account though, and it's a great game, and I definitely it's not something I'm gonna stick playing with. Obviously, it's not gonna become a big multiplayer game for me or anything.
Oh my god, I'm not the.
But it'll be something I'll definitely jump into, every now and then, and like you just play for a bit. Like I don't see myself like, unlike battle royale games, which I just fucking loathe. I don't see myself not playing this one. Like I see myself actually keeping it and then just jumping in for just a few games or whatever, and it's a bit of fun. But yeah, that's a good game. But that's what I've been doing. I've also been playing Life is Strange 2, but I don't really go in depth on that one because I've only played the first episode. So
yeah, you did ask me about that, didn't you?
Yeah. So I've been playing that as well, but yeah, I've only played the first episode so far. But other than that, I've been working. I've got a couple of freelance gigs I'm working on. I'm editing my YouTube video. I've got like 3 assessments to write. It's fucking crazy. But yeah, that's what I've been up to lately. Yeah. Do you know what else I've been up to, Lewin? Do you know what else I did?
I'd like to point out just quickly before we figure out what you did is
Yeah.
both of our catch-up segments have successfully amalgamated every single thing we frequently joke about talking too much about on this show.
Yeah, one day we'll talk about Joker. But no, speaking of the Joker, and like, I mean, another thing that's happened recently is there's been the Microsoft event. There's
Yep,
been
that was stuff. Yep.
fucking whatever. Honestly, there's nothing really worth talking about.
No.
There is a new Don't Nod game, and I can't remember the name of it, but that actually looked pretty good.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I thought it was Life is
Yeah,
Strange.
so did I. And I was like, oh, I'm actually really intrigued by this. And then it wasn't. I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah. Don't Nod game. I'm just gonna put Don't Nod game in,
I
see
like
what
how
comes
you
up.
can tell it's a donut game because they've just made that their signature style now.
Yeah, it's called Twin Mirror, and that was announced at the Xbox Microsoft stream thing. Is it? Oh, hang on. There's Twin Mirror, and there's okay. Actually, no, sorry, it's not Twin Mirror. That's another one of the game. It's Tell Me Why. Sorry, Tell Me Why was the one that was announced, and that's going to be an Xbox exclusive. So I'll play it on my PC.
Yeah, same.
Twin Mirror is another one of their games that's apparently coming out this year, but that's actually sorry, it was a separate game. But yeah, so Don't Not actually have two games meant to come out this year, which is pretty
Oh,
crazy.
damn, donut make it big.
Yeah, so they've got that and that coming out this year. But yeah, when I watched the trailer for Tell Me Why, I was like, fuck, this is just so Life is Strange. Like, everything about this just screams Life is
I had
Strange.
left the stream at that point to go check something and came back and I was like, wait, did they announce Life is Strange 3? The fuck did I miss?
Yeah, but yeah, it's called Tell Me Why, and it's just the same kind of thing. It's going to be an episodic adventure game
I look
series.
forward to it.
It's going to be 3 episodes that will be released. It says across mid 2020. We're kind of in mid 2020 now, so there's no actual. Hang on, here we go. First episode drops August 27th.
Oh,
So I don't have an Xbox, but the good thing about having a PC is I can just get it on PC.
yeah.
So I'll definitely be playing that. I think that looks really good.
I'm gonna have to finish Life is Strange 2. I know it's not connected, but I feel.
Yeah, I'll get around to it. The only thing I can say about Life is Strange 2 is, and I've said this before, but I've put off playing it just because I've just not been interested in it. Just because, like, you know, Life is Strange and Before the Storm is so important to me. That I just wasn't interested in playing a game with those other characters. And so, but I think enough time has passed for me to jump into it. I think,
All right, Chris, calm down.
yeah. Yeah, true. But no, like, I enjoyed episode 1, actually. I thought episode 1 was really good. There were parts I was like,
I know it's a tiny bit, but he's a little brother, so I kind of get it.
yeah. I enjoyed episode 1, but yeah, I'm definitely not enjoying or invested in it as much as I was the other 2
No.
games. I have to say, like, I'm kind of just slowly playing it. I've played episode 1, and I've been meaning to play episode 2 for like a week, and I just haven't done it yet.
Doing better.
But yeah, it's something I'll play through. I'm just kind of taking a bit of a break from Resident Evil 7, and I thought I'd play a bit of Life is Strange. So yeah, is what it is. But yeah, do you know what else we've been doing? We've been watching, you and me. You've had probably a better experience in my view. But we've been watching The Dark Knight.
So here's our Joker segue.
Yeah, the Joker segue from like 5 minutes ago. This is now paid off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we've watched The Dark Knight. You went to see it in cinemas.
Yes. It was a weird experience in purely the fact that is Hoyts a major thing in Sydney?
Yeah, Hoyts are fucking everywhere.
Okay, I just wanted to check, being only going to the movies in Canberra. I wasn't sure how big Hoyts exactly always is.
No, they're everywhere.
Um,
There's a lot of event cinemas as well.
yeah. We don't have any event cinemas anymore.
Yeah. Well, like the big cinema here in Sydney would be the George Street Cinema, which is an event cinema.
Yes, which I frequently gone past whenever I'm in Sydney because my job, even though I don't work in Sydney, my store I play is actually across the street from that.
Oh, okay.
Wait, sorry, it's in the same building as that. When you
Yeah, it's a big building, yeah.
it's just like when you go in off George Street, it's just the right, and that's like part of my job. So that's a nightmare to walk past every time I want to think of a movie. But
So just a quick detour. So when you say this part of your job, do you go there to work sometimes, or like?
I However, because the person who trained my friend, who trained me, long line there, my girlfriend's dog's fish, um,
Yeah.
he he trained my friend to train me. So whenever we go to Sydney, he'd go to see his trainer. So I'd
Yeah.
go with him, so I'd always end up there too, and we just kind of know how things work in that store. It used to be a time
Right.
zone, but as of like I think a month ago, it's been rebranded to
Right.
officially a part of my jobs collection.
Yeah, okay, I see. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, so you went to the movies to see The Dark Knight.
Yes, and they advertised it as an extreme screen, and I
Yeah.
think it was. But we were in one of the smaller cinemas because obviously they need the extreme screen cinemas for the actual movie releases that might happen. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a smaller cinema, but the audio quality and the screen quality was definitely that of extreme screen, and it was just so bizarre not having the larger cinema for that.
Right, okay, yeah. But yeah, like they're playing Hoyts are playing The Dark Knight and stuff because, the nothing really on.
Yep,
And
that's
obviously, you got a
the
Christopher Nolan.
virus is stopping things.
The Peroni the
Where do you
Peroni
get that
pandemic.
from?
Sorry. But yeah, so they're playing that. I didn't watch it in a cinema because my local cinema is closed still. I don't know if they're reopening. Their Facebook page is very active, but they're promoting a drive-in cinema,
Ooh.
not their actual cinema. And I know they can open. That's the thing. Like they can open, but I don't know if they're going to. I think maybe they went bust. They are an event cinema, but they're not like a big event brand. Like they're just kind of. I think they're just like an independent cinema that does all their ticketing and stuff through event cinemas.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I didn't get to see it. But yeah, I just rented it on PlayStation and just watched it last night.
Own it.
Yeah, I used to own it on DVD, but I cleared out my entire DVD collection and stuff years ago when I needed some money, so
Uh,
I don't own it anymore. So I was like, fuck, I have to rent it now, and I'm like, I would buy it, but it's also like an extra $10 to buy it, and I'm like, I don't plan on watching this movie again anytime soon, so I'll just rent it for a few bucks and just watch it. And but yeah, no, it's really good. It's actually the first time I've seen this film, probably in. Oh, I'd have to say the last time I saw it would have been when I was living with my parents, which would have been probably 2012, to be honest with you, maybe 2013.
oh, but did you, so around Dark Knight Rises time.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely would have watched it after Dark Knight Rises came out because I remember watching all three of them each night, one time. But I don't remember watching The Dark Knight at all since then. Um,
It's been a
so
while.
it's been years.
So I think it's been at least maybe 3 to 5 years for me.
So it's interesting kind of jumping back into it now, especially because yeah, definitely the last time I saw this would have been before Batman v Superman, before everything. So like it's interesting watching this now, being like we've had Batman v Superman since then. We've had Justice League. We've got another Batman movie coming up. In the time since then, we've had Gotham, and a bunch of animated stuff. So, like, we've
That
had the
made
Arkham.
it to the big time again.
Yeah, we've had Arkham Knight
Oh yeah,
come out
which
since the
Batman
last.
in it.
Yeah, which is the last time since I watched it. So, it's really cool watching this movie actually, and I kind of I decided to pick it rather than like Batman Begins and that because maybe one day we'll talk about the whole trilogy. But I decided to pick Dark Knight because it is the iconic one. It is,
Yeah.
it is the one to watch.
Rewatching it definitely reminded me of why. Like,
It's just so good.
it is.
Like I don't honestly can't really fault it, to be honest with you.
No.
Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about it.
See, everyone praises it, and like if you go too long without seeing something, you kind of seem to forget why. And you're like, yeah, it was good, but was it really that good? And then you rewatch it and you're like, oh, it was that
Yeah.
good.
But this is also 2008, so we also didn't have the
Superhero movies
we
weren't.
also didn't. Yeah, we had Iron Man come out the same year. But we didn't have the MCU. We didn't have all these superhero shows. You know, like fucking Smallville was still airing back then. You know, like we just didn't have all this oversaturation of this stuff.
It was truly
And
a big thing, the same way Spider-Man was for Marvel back in
yeah,
the early 2000s. It was,
it was this big, you know, each Dark Knight film was this big event.
yeah,
You know, it was this big thing. And I think obviously, you know, this one's also obviously, you know, obviously got a lot of um, traction as well because of obviously Heath Ledger's passing as well, unfortunately. But that definitely, because that happened before this film came out,
yeah,
before the film was released.
yeah.
So, you know, I know he did another movie as well. He shot another film after Dark Knight that I don't think he got to finish. I'm pretty sure there was I can't remember what film it was, but there was a film that he shot that he didn't finish shooting. But that was, I think, released in like 2009 or 2010 or something. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, The Dark Knight was like that big thing, you know, it was a big iconic character and incredible performance that unfortunately he just wasn't there. You know, he got an Oscar for it. You know, he won an Oscar that he wasn't there to receive, you know, so it's kind of sad, but it is an incredible performance. And I think
Yeah.
it is that performance that really takes this film and kind of elevates it
Something,
to.
I'll let you, sorry, yeah.
I was just gonna say, because like with Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, like, you know, Tom Hardy's great, and fuck, what's his name? That plays Scarecrow is.
Oh, Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, yeah, they're both great. Don't get me wrong, like they're fantastic actors. But like there's just something about them that isn't as iconic as Heath Ledger's Joker. Like you know, like their presence in the film is really good, but like there's just something about Heath Ledger's Joker that just elevates The Dark Knight
Mm.
and just makes it stand out
It was actually something
so much more.
I was thinking while watching, is how much of the stigma of his death has actually added to that performance.
Mm.
Because I obviously he did a fucking brilliant part, but we all know how people tend to look at superhero movies.
Yeah.
No one ever takes it as serious cinema, and I want to actually wonder.
Well, if you're Martin Scorsese, you don't.
I was like, I did have that slight moment of, would he have still gotten the Oscar for this were he alive?
Yeah, it is interesting watching it because, like, I mean, and I think you know, The Dark Knight is a very interesting case study just in general. If we're talking superhero movies, because, like you said, like superhero movies weren't a big thing back then. They weren't taken very seriously. You know, and like I mean, that entire concept within itself really is, you know, something that's interesting about the Dark Knight trilogy and Christopher Nolan's approach, because you know, Christopher Nolan moves away from all the comic booky stuff, you
Yeah,
know, like, and he's like, this is what Christopher Nolan's films are basically like, this is what this would be if it existed in reality,
The most
in the
comic
real
book
world.
part of the Dark Knight is Two-Face.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that is. I honestly think that's the most comic booky thing in the entire trilogy.
I would push that maybe Scarecrow pushes it, but
Yeah,
otherwise it is Two-Face.
yeah, because Bane's very much just a big muscly guy.
Bombs.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely comic book elements, but it's very much grounded in reality, and like you definitely see it like immediately. Like there's such a big difference between watching this and watching a Marvel movie, or watching,
Or
yeah. And like, I mean, I would even like, yeah, watching Superman, like watching Batman v Superman. Like Batman v Superman is very gritty, and but it's very comic booky as well.
yeah,
Where this is like gritty and dark and gritty, but it's also realistic, and
it is.
like it's from everywhere, from not just the setting, you know, like where they shot it. You know, there's not a lot of green. Like these films are mostly practical. There's not a lot of effects or green screen or anything
Mm.
like that. It's mostly practical. Like, you've got that. You've got just the city where they shot it. I don't know where they shot it, but
I know for certain Chicago was one of them because there
yeah,
was a scene of a bunch of bridges and I recognized them immediately from Transformers
yeah.
3.
Um, yeah, I mean, it could have been shot kind of really anywhere. I'm looking through. Yeah, so chose Chicago for 13 weeks. Because apparently they also filmed part of um, Batman Begins there as well. So, yeah, it's like but it's definitely like like you say, the comic booky stuff is definitely the kind of Two Face look. And I'm actually looking at Two Face right now. The makeup, the like effects side of it, with the finished film, it looks really interesting.
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely a big film, and like it just the settings look like everything from the cinematography to the setting to the tech. Everything's all realistic. It's all very much like this is the real world. It's not
Yeah.
so much a comic book world. Like even all Batman's tech, like Batman's tech is very much like this is realistic. It's something that
You can,
exists in the real world. It's
you can
not
never
like
imagine Batman in the comics being
yeah.
bitten by a dog and that being a legitimate issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most unrealistic part of his in this movie in terms of like Batman would be the bit towards the end of the film when he's in that Joker, like he's in the skyscraper and he's got the sonar vision.
Hmm.
Like that's a little bit more comic booky. And I think it's also a nod, like I think the whole point of it is meant to be a nod to Batman's appearance in the comics with the white eyes. Like they put that on there. I think it's meant to be a nod to that. But that's a bit comic booky, but like the rest of it, like everything, even from like the Joker's plan, like the Joker in the comic books does a lot of like just weird shit for the sake of it. Where in this, it's very much like it's still in that vein, but he's using like bombs and like, just like it's just bombs and like killing people and just shit like that. Like, it's not like so much like here's some ridiculous theme park elaborate theme park setup, from like the Killing Joke. Like it's not anything like that. It's very much just like like they keep to the spirit of the Joker, but it's very much like at one point he's got a fucking bazooka. It's great. I love it.
Weird sort of semi-subversion of the Joker there that I completely forgot about. But obviously when I went to see it, I was like, "You're nothing like any other Joker.
Yeah, it's true. Like it's very much its own
You are like
thing.
every other Joker is high and manic, and then has those moments where he gets really serious. This
Yeah.
Joker is weirdly is almost always serious in a weird sense, in a jokey sense, and then has
He,
those high moments.
yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
weird flip around.
it's definitely a much more serious take on the character, but also like it very much keeps to that.
Yeah, he's still got the basic archetype there. You're like you
Yeah,
can
it's
tell
great.
that's a Joker, but watching it, I was like, you're not laughing maniacally. Like it's almost like a spit in the face to the maniacal laugh when he walks into the about like what 10, 20 minutes into the movie when he walks in.
Yeah, and it's just like ha ha ha, ooh ooh yeah, yeah,
You're like, nice.
yeah. But it's definitely like, and I think this movie as well is really, you know, um, something that I think was worth mentioning is the fact that it did come out kind of pre MCU,
Like
and I think
just before it.
yeah, like I mean, literally Iron Man came out in the same year, but I think this and Iron Man are very much like the reasons the superhero genre kind of
Yeah.
took off. Like I don't think without this movie coming out, I don't think it would have been this big thing like it was. Like I don't think the MCU would have been successful.
No.
I think this movie plays a lot to do with like has a lot to do with that. And without this movie as well, we wouldn't have gotten shows like Arrow because Arrow was very much like when Arrow first started in 2012, I think it was. Um, it was very much this was before all the DC shows. This is the
Yeah,
first
this was
DC show post Smallville. And it was very much like gritty and grounded, and it was very much like heavily taking from the Dark Knight.
yeah.
You know, and they even did that with Superman. Like Man of Steel is very much like obviously Man of Steel because it's Superman. It's very much more comic booky and it's more out there and not as realistic because it's Superman.
But it is
But at the
still a
same
more
time, they
grounded take than what
yeah they really tried to keep that grounded tone. and I think it works. I really like Man of Steel, but yeah, that's something that like the Dark Knight caused, because like Batman Begins was good, but it's definitely nowhere near as iconic, and definitely isn't anywhere near as successful as the Dark Knight. Like the Dark Knight really cemented um, this version of Batman in a way,
Yeah,
I think. Um,
like
and they also got rid of the stupid costume from the first film, which I like. I much prefer his costume in this and Dark Knight Rises, because I think it's just better. Like, I mean, I know it's a bit of a meme that Batman can't turn his head, but it's just silly. And even when you watch the first part of this movie, like the very start of the movie where he's like going up against Scarecrow and like the gangs and stuff, and like those Batman wannabes, it just looks silly. Like even now,
like how
like,
stilted the fighting looks in that part.
yeah, it just looks so silly. And then it's so much better later in the film. And I know they have, like, I really like that they realized, like, I think the creators recognized this, Christopher Nolan recognized this, and actually wrote that into the film as like, oh yeah, like I need a new suit because I need to be quicker and I need to be, do that. And I really like that. And I really love the suit. Like, this is definitely one of the best bat suits. Like,
Agreed.
it's so good. The Dark Knight redesign, I guess. I like that. Yeah, he's the mask is pretty much the same. Like the mask itself doesn't change. It's just now a separate piece, and it's not all one thing. And there's like its own neck piece.
Mm.
But I actually just like the suit itself. Like it's very much, like all the different parts. The Batman logo doesn't stand out. It's just kind of there. Yeah, it's really cool. I like this suit a lot. I really like the cape too. The cape's really good.
That's one of the weird
It's a
parts.
really
When
nice
he's in
cape.
the when he's in Hong Kong,
Yeah,
extra Laos, um, he has the he doesn't have the cape on, and it actually
yeah.
mildly threw me off for a second.
You know what's funny? I never noticed that until this rewatch, that he never had the cape on in that bit,
Yeah, he had that
at
weird
all.
like almost a jetpacky wing glider sort of
Yeah,
mechanism on his back. I'm like, this doesn't look right to me. This
yeah.
looks
I
almost
guess just
Green Goblin.
yeah, yeah. It does a bit, doesn't it? But fuck, man. Like, I just want to just get into. Fuck, this was a good cast.
Oh,
What a great cast. What a great, like, I mean, it's weird now, like, because we've also got so many versions of Batman and so many, iterations and all of this. But, like, this is just such a good cast of actors that are just so perfectly cast in their roles. In this
yeah.
film, like, I mean, across the Dark Knight trilogy as a whole, I think, but, like, specifically in this film, like, it's interesting, like, what I love about, like Heath Ledger's obviously incredible casting, but like Aaron Eckhart, I think it's a really good casting decision. I think he is so good as Two-Face.
He left an
Um,
impression on us, that's for sure.
yeah,
We
and like you don't.
entire video screaming Rachel.
Yes. I was gonna try to avoid bringing that up,
Nope,
but thank you.
it comes up.
Yeah. So just in case you don't know, we got an entire video of us playing Doom, and there's a character. There's someone with a gamer tag Rachel in that game, and then we spend the entire video just chasing her around, yelling Rachel.
It may have partially ruined that scene for me.
Yeah, no, I know. It was the first thing that I thought of when that scene came up in the rewatch last night when I was watching it. The moment that Batman opens the door and he's just like, Rachel, Rachel, I was just immediately like, oh no, oh no.
But yeah,
But that's
just besides us ruining that part for ourselves, he does an absolutely solid performance as Gary Oldman as
oh my boy Gary
he is
Oldman.
my definitive Jim Gordon.
Yeah, he's so good. Like his Jim Gordon is incredible, and I really like this film as well because it really pushes his character to like the point. Like he fakes his death, and then you got the bit at the end where his family and everything, and you just watch it and you're just like, fuck, Gary Oldman's a good actor. But like, there's no bad actors in this film.
No,
There's
there's
no bad
really not.
performances, and it's actually
Maggie
even
Gyllenhaal taking over from Katie Holmes. Katie Holmes
yeah, Katie
did a
Holmes. Yeah.
really good job.
Do you know what's great is I mean, and I know that the film makes it very clear, like, because there's one thing that it's just in the writing, but obviously because they did recast that role for this film, the first time she's introduced in the film is when Bruce Wayne and Alfred are talking, and like Dent's on the TV, and not on the TV, on the monitor, sorry, and she's walking next to him, and so they make sure they have the line of dialogue to establish
Yeah,
who this character is.
Rachel can
Um,
do whatever she wants, and you're like,
yeah,
oh
and I
no.
think like look, to be honest, like I mean, I get why that's in there. That's also a really bad line of dialogue, but it's also like a case of like I get why it's there because not everyone's probably gonna watch this and realize that it's the same character. Um, but yeah, no, the fact that like I think she plays the role better. I don't like Katie Holmes' version of the character that much. I think this is a much stronger interpretation and a much stronger performance.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, she also dies, so you know that's a thing that happens as well.
I
But
didn't
she's great.
notice the amount of foreshadowing towards that earlier in the film until this rewatch. And
Yeah,
she,
um,
there was a surprising amount of lines where you're like, oh, yep,
yeah,
yep.
they're definitely foreshadowing this. But yeah, no, it's good, and there's actually a lot of inspiration that has come from um, comic books with this film. Nolan actually there's inspiration for the film actually came from Joker's comic book debut, as well as obviously there's a bit of Killing Joke in there, and he's also got a bit of the Long Halloween in there for Harvey Dent's origin. So there's like a little bits and bobs. Like Christopher Nolan definitely tells his own thing in a
Mm,
realistic world, but he takes little bits and pieces and kind of puts them together. One thing I've noticed, and like it's interesting, is this the poster for this film. And it's always bothered me. And I know that obviously it's not intended to be anything, but like the poster of the film has the big building with the Batman logo in fire on it,
yeah,
and that's not a thing that happens until Dark Knight Rises, and obviously that's not planned. Like obviously it's just a promotional poster that then they decided to actually put in the next film. But it's just weird what looking at that poster and being like, oh, because it's a cool fucking poster. Like I'm looking at it right now, and it's just like
oh yeah. I
Batman
like
just
the
standing
posters
there with
for the
this.
entire trilogy. They've got a nice thematic thing going on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But yeah, this film, like, I just want to talk. Let's just talk box office for a sec,
I didn't do it at the
because
box office.
let's just say that this film is the highest grossing film of 2008.
Really, it beat out
Um,
Iron Man. I mean, to be
yeah.
fair, Batman Begins to
Um,
kickstart it there, but
Now, I don't know if that's specifically US or not, but I'm just going to say it is because that's what it says here. And just, made over $1 billion,
wow.
not doing too bad. And actually, at the time of its release as well, it also became, it had the highest gross, um, a highest grossing record for domestic opening, so domestic as in America,
Yep.
with 158 million in its opening weekend, which is a record it held for 3 years. So no other film for 3 years beat The Dark Knight in terms of
Avengers.
opening box office. Um, I don't think that quite lines up 3 years because it was 2008 it came out.
2011. That would line up.
Wasn't
Or was it
wasn't Avengers
2012 for?
2012? Avengers was 2012.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, it made over $1 billion.
Well deserved.
Which, if we were to compare to the first film, I'm just going to bring up the first film now,
Yeah.
and we'll even bring up Dark Knight Rises as well. I'll bring them up and let's have a look. So, yeah, so the first film only grossed $48 million in its opening weekend in America.
So nearly just over 100 million less.
Yeah, I'm just going to try and find the actual. Um,
Oh, okay. Wait. No, what year did this come out?
2008.
2012. So I was looking. No, I know when. I was looking when Dark Knight Rises came
Oh yeah,
out.
2012 was Dark Knight Rises. Um,
No, came out in 2011.
um, Hang on, let's have a look. Okay, so it's so Batman Begins. Uh, a lifetime Batman Begins. So its gross domestic worldwide gross was $371.8 million on its original release. And then it got a 2012 re-release, which brought it up to $373.4 million. So comparing that to The Dark Knight Rises, which is $1 billion film, like there's a massive difference between Batman Begins and Dark Knight, and I think a lot of that could come from Heath Ledger's the word of mouth as well. I think the fact that the trailers looked really good, but also I think word of mouth about Heath Ledger's performance. Heath Ledger
Yeah.
passing. I think a lot of that contributed to this, but also the success of the first film. I think a lot of people watched the first film and really enjoyed it, and there was a lot of because obviously Batman back then, Batman Begins, Batman wasn't a big cinematic name. It was kind of a laughing stock after the 90s. So to have a film like Batman Begins, I think there was a lot of success there, and then that led to The Dark Knight being successful. What's this film called? Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises was also released at the time of the Colorado shooting as well.
Yes, and also its opening premiere was
Yeah,
the Colorado shooting.
yeah, it's rough. I'm trying to find box office. All right, let's look. All
It,
right,
it
so
it's saying just straight up it grossed $1.081 billion in total.
yeah, so I mean, it was pretty much just as successful as the Dark Knight.
I think
Although I don't think critically it was as
no,
successful. Yeah,
even nowadays it still looked back as sometimes the weakest, sometimes the middle, but it's Dark Knight is always the
yeah.
strongest.
I mean, look, to be honest, I haven't watched any of these in so long, apart from Dark Knight, that I honestly could not tell you which one I like more. Uh, in terms of like between Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins. Obviously, I like the Dark Knight because it's just a fucking iconic film.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it's a really good film. But essentially, the plot of this film, it pretty much just revolves around some banking. Really, when you think about it, it's essentially just revolves around. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's fireworks going off here. Um,
Yep.
yeah, but essentially revolves around basically the criminals, like the mob bosses. They all have their kind of like finances right,
Mm.
and Batman. Batman's a bit of a problem for them. So essentially, the Joker is kind of like a free agent in this film. He doesn't have any allegiance to anyone. He doesn't work for anyone. He's just like, hey, I can take out the Batman if you pay me. I also love that he's called the Batman in this. Like
Mm.
that's just how everyone refers to him. He's not usually referred to as Batman that much. He's just referred to as the Batman. That's interesting, but that's what the new movie's called. See, we've got a tie in there somewhere. But no, I think like that's essentially the plot of the film. Is he's like, I'll take out Batman, but then it's just this really elaborate, just like plan that's like, and when I say elaborate, I don't mean like a bad way, I mean like a good way.
Mm.
I do think though, like, and actually something I did realize on this rewatch is the whole plan of him, when he's going after Harvey Dent, after Harvey Dent reveals he's the like he says he's Batman, and then so they're
Yeah.
like taking him through the thing, and then his whole plan of turning up with a truck and trying to kill him or whatever, and then there's that whole bit with him and Batman, and then he gets captured, and then he's in prison, but then there's the guy in prison with a cell phone, and then he gets, then there's the two guys that capture Harvey and
Yeah.
Rachel, and then take them to the place, and then Batman's interrogating him, and then they have to go and save one of them. Like they do say the line that the Joker planned to be captured and planned to do all this, and it's a bit unbelievable to a
It,
point.
I think okay, so they keep bringing up something I never picked up before watching it was how much they keep bringing up the corruption in Gordon's unit,
Yeah,
and that plays into that part just fine with them kidnapping Harvey and Rachel. What I find the most unbelievable part of that sequence where I have to suspend disbelief is
yeah.
the cell phone.
Well, yeah, the cell phone because because he's in the cell, he's in the interrogation room with that other cop, and he's like taunting him. But there's it's all made out like it's this big elaborate plan, like the whole thing, like not just him, but him going after Harvey and then getting captured and everything. Um, but like it really comes across as like, well, no, it's not. But then the film kind of goes in later on saying that like he doesn't have plans, he just kind of does things.
A lot of people
Um,
take that. Something I think this rewatch was that was him misleading Dent.
yeah, I definitely think I can see the point there because it's definitely all a big elaborate plan to, it's all really a plan to mess with Batman. Like that's all it is. I mean,
Yeah,
that's all anything the Joker ever does is just to kind of mess with Batman and just whatever. But like it's so elaborate that it's very I think that is the point where the film gets a bit comic booky because
yeah,
it's like like Christopher Nolan's always going for this very realistic take that it's very unrealistic for this plan to play out the way it does, because what happens if you actually blow up that truck with the bazooka and kill Harvey Dent and then get away with it? Then you're not going to get captured and like the whole thing. So
then
so then
I suppose in that sense, if he'd actually succeeded there,
I guess there wouldn't have been
like,
need for the plan, the rest of
because
the plan. Maybe it was like a backup plan, maybe.
yeah, because his plan was to take out Dent so that Gotham would be like, oh, we've lost our White Knight. I guess we're just gonna succumb to tyranny.
Yeah,
So I guess if Den had died in the truck, then yeah, you're right. Everything past that point is a bit comic booky in how elaborate it
yeah.
is.
And I'm not saying it's bad. Like it's just something I noticed on
It
this
makes
rewatch.
good cinema.
Yeah, but it's a really good sequence overall. But I just realized on this kind of watching, I'm like, there is no way he would have planned all of this. It doesn't
Look,
quite
like the
work.
cop going at him seems like dumb luck.
Yeah, like the him escaping, because he escaped that before the bomb went off,
Mm,
right? I like how too when that bomb goes off, he's the only one just standing there. He's just like, oh, okay.
it,
Um,
it is something I thought about on this rewatch. I'm like, did he know the perfect position to take? So
exactly.
that
Yeah,
was
it's all a bit convenient, let's just say. But
yeah.
again, it kind of you just got to suspend your disbelief for a bit
In the
and
end,
just
as
kind of
much
go
as
along
we
with it.
say that it isn't comic book, it is still a
Yeah,
comic
there's like
movie.
there's those kind of elements in there. Um, and I don't want to structure this like a review. Like we're not really reviewing this
No,
film. We're
this
just
is
kind
us
of
just
talking
talking about
about
the
it.
things we like about it, which I
But
guess
yeah,
is
I
a review.
I guess. But one thing I did like is kind of like this film really explores kind of like the ethical side. Actually, no. Before I jump into that, you know how a lot of people say that there's not a lot of detective work in these films.
There was quite a bit of detective
I'm sorry. What? The Dark Knight has so much detective stuff going on. Like literally, there's a whole sequence where I mean, it is kind of a montage, but there's a whole sequence where Bruce is in his little fucking underground little lair thingy, and he's like literally testing out, different
the,
bullets
yep, that
against the concrete to see which bullet matches up. Like, I mean, yes, it is. And then he's scanning it. He scans it and to create a 3D render in the computer so he can match it up to then recreate the
the
bullet
concrete.
from his tests to find out what it is. And it's like, what are you talking
Tell me
about? There's
that's
no
not
detective.
detective.
What are you talking about? There's no detective work in these films. Like, he's literally a whole sequence of him being the world. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say he's the world's greatest detective in this, but like, there is literally a sequence of him being
A
a
detective.
detective and doing detective work at a
Just
crime scene.
hmm.
At a crime scene, they go to a crime scene where the Joker has killed two police officers or whatever, and he goes and cuts out the piece in the wall, and then goes to all the effort to figure shit out. Like, I mean, there's not really detective work in The Dark Knight Rises,
Or
or I don't really think there's much in Batman Begins either. I don't know, but like this film actually has it play out, And I'm just like, this is great. Like, I never even thought about it like this before, but rewatching it, I'm like, yeah,
It's
like
really
there's detective
amazing how
shit in
they
this.
condensed. This is a thing for the whole trilogy, not just the Dark Knight. How they condensed the entire Batman mythos into three films, literally with the beginning, the middle, and the end. The
Yeah,
beginning, he's beginning. He's just starting out. He doesn't know how to do everything yet. The Dark Knight is peak Nolan Batman.
yeah.
He's
I mean, like both literally and also in the sense of the actual films as well.
mm,
This is like the peak that this series gets.
that
But yeah,
Dark
no, I see what you
Knight
mean.
is
Like,
like a retire. He's been retired for 8 years. He's down on his luck, and it's his ending story. The fact that he managed to make an entire what would feel like what is meant to be a multi movie
yeah,
scenario into three films and did it pretty coherently
yeah.
is amazing.
Like what I like about this film is very much like, I mean, it's pretty much established that this film doesn't take place that long after Batman Begins. Like,
No,
there is a time jump, but it's not a very big one.
no.
Not big
Still
enough to
within
be
like
the
the
point.
past 1 or 2 years, definitely.
Yeah, like it's, but also like, like the film ends with the Joker. The first film ends with the Joker's calling card, and then this film they're still investigating the Joker. Like you have the opening bit where they're like, it's him again. Batman's like, him again. So it does elaborate that obviously they've been investigating it for some time, but I would definitely say honestly there's not that much time between them. At
Mm.
all. Like, I mean, it could be, I mean, it's not really specifically stated. It could be a period of months. It could be a period of a year. I highly doubt it's any longer than a year.
I
I
mean, a
don't.
lot of it is a bit telling that a lot of from what I can see, the inspiration for the Dark Knight comes from Batman Year One,
Yeah.
which is the origin story of Two Face
Yeah.
in the more modern retellings, and also just how Gordon, Harvey, and Bruce or Batman all work together.
Yeah. It's definitely like very early days on, but also when you think about it, it's also pretty much like the big with this particular version of Batman, like as you said, this is his peak. This is where he's like, one, Bruce is still pretty young in this. He's, like, I mean, he's feared across Gotham,
Mm,
like, I mean, to the point where Jim Gordon just puts the bat signal on, not to reach Batman, but just to put the fear in the criminals and to remind him
it's
he's out
out
there.
there.
Batman's cleaning up the streets. Him and Gordon are going after the mob's money to get rid of the mobs. There's so much stuff going on. At the start of this film, it's very much Batman at his peak and the height of kind of his existence in this universe, right? And then the Joker just comes, and the whole point of the Joker is just to push him to the edge. And not just him, but to push all the characters. Gordon,
Yeah.
Harvey Dent. Like, that's his whole point, is to break them. And this film does break the mythos of Batman. Like, while Bane breaks him physically, this pushes
Yeah,
Batman
Joker
mentally.
mentally pushes him down to the point where you get that classic movie Act Two part where the hero is down and he
Yeah.
needs to find a new way to get back up.
This is after Rachel!
Yes.
One thing I want to point out is the color grading. I absolutely love the
Oh,
color grading in this film, especially after when Rachel dies. We suddenly the film is graded and it has this very blue tint grading to it for a little bit,
mm,
because it's like showing like the darkest kind of moment, the Act Two moment, but like it's very much it just looks so good,
it does.
and it's only brief. It's only for a few shots. There's a few shots that are post, where we see the reactions and we see things play out. Um, and then there's that scene in the apartment with Bruce and
Michael
that
and Alfred and
Michael,
what I just call
between
him,
Michael and
Michael
Christian.
Michael
Christian,
Michael and Christian. Full on
the iconic Batman characters.
Michael and Christian.
Um, but yeah, like, I mean, it's such a cool little, like, it's just a subtle little thing, but it really kind of like emphasizes just this bleak world. And it
Yeah.
also happens when the Joker's plan is kind of playing out, when he's killing off all the people,
Yeah,
the
the judge,
the
the
judge and that.
British
Like there's
outcome.
this, as everything going wrong, there's this blue grade, this blue tint grade to it, and it looks really good. I like it.
Oh yeah. What I love is thematically it's very much like a Cold War. No one's
Yeah,
actually Joker does one thing, but it doesn't escalate everything. Batman retaliates, it doesn't escalate everything. And it just kind of keeps building up from there, kind of like how the Cold War did.
yeah,
Except, obviously, this one actually did hit a boiling point, and the nukes flied. Rachel and
yeah,
Rachel got killed. Dent got. I love the early part of the film before everything actually proper hits off. When it's
yeah.
just them retaliating daily to nightly against each other, and the movie flows so perfectly.
Oh, it's well paced. It's such a well paced film. Everything just seemed like all the story beats just seem to happen at just the right moments. Like,
Mm.
there's not a single point in this film where I'm like just waiting for the next story beat. I'm kind of just watching it play out,
No,
and just being like, yeah, I don't really care about this at the moment. Like, I just need the next beat to happen, because the beats are so perfectly paced out, and all the bits in between are important. Like, I don't think there's not a single not important scene in this film. Like, I don't think there's any scenes you could take out of this film.
no, you
You
need
know,
them for a
they're all
220
important.
minute movie. That's a damn good accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely scenes in like Dark Knight Rises and that I think you could do without, that were in
I
the film. But like for the most part, like this film is pretty much, it's perfectly paced. Like I don't like whoever edited this, Lee Smith, whoever Lee Smith is an editor. He's an Australian film editor, so there you go.
Oh damn.
And who's regularly worked on Christopher Nolan films. He did Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. So he's been basically doing most of Christopher Nolan's films in recent memory, really.
And I love all of
Um,
the films except for Dunkirk. I haven't seen that yet.
yeah, he also edited X-Men First Class,
Which is also a very good superhero
well
movie.
paced film, and he edited Spectre.
Was Spectre that well paced?
I don't know, I can't remember, but he edited that movie,
We will
and
get
he
back to you with that answer like in a few months.
also he edited 1917 last year.
Oh yeah, I heard really good things about that film.
Well, okay, he edited 1917 and he also edited Dark Phoenix.
Ah,
Yeah.
I see the
Um,
duology of the editor.
so, like, he's got some hits and misses, but, like, he's done pretty much Christopher Nolan's filmography for the last decade. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
That's nice. I like that. He's a good editor, and I really like his editing in this film. In fact, when his name came up, I was like, you, sir, did a good job. And he's Australian.
hot damn.
Even better. Um, but yeah, like I think if just as someone like myself as an editor, like any aspiring editors out there, I think this is a masterclass of editing, and I think this should be studied in film schools. This film, not just from a writing perspective, but from an editing perspective. Like this should be pulled apart and studied in film school, and it isn't, and it's annoying.
I think
That bothers me a lot.
with the layout of the story, is it does indeed start small and lead to a crescendo and a high point. And
Mm,
a lot of time, movies tend to misplace those things, where you have
yeah.
the high point in the beginning and you spend the rest of the movie going, when is this gonna catch up to something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not once in The Dark Knight do I ever think, how long does this movie have left? When?
Yeah. And it goes quickly too. Like, I mean, and that again, it comes down to pacing, this is why pacing is so important in film, because, you need to not notice the runtime, you need to be going through it. Like, I mean, I watched this last night, and yeah, no, it ended, and I was like, oh fuck, it's 11:30 at night. I started it at 9 o'clock or whenever it was I started it, but I was like, like just time flew by.
Yeah.
and that's how great this pacing is. Another thing I want to talk about is the cinematography. This film's fucking gorgeous.
Oh, it is. From
Just
the very
every
first bank scene when you're going over
yeah,
the cities to just every
every shot is so, and there's a lot of iconic shots in this. I really like shots like the shot of Batman standing there as after Rachel's building, after the building explodes, and he's just kind of standing there while the fire crew are trying to put out the fire, and it's just this nice shot. He's like center frame. That's a poster shot right there. But like just every shot, like I mean, one of my favorite scenes, or like all the scenes in this film are so beautifully shot. But one of my favorite ones is actually the dinner table scene, in the restaurant with Bruce's random girlfriend and Harvey and Rachel. That's just such a nicely shot scene. I really love just how it's shot. It
I
looks
think
so good.
there was really only one scene in the movie I was actually a bit weirded out by. It
Yeah.
was Harvey and Batman's first meeting on the roof of
Oh yeah, yeah. The
like
camera's just kind of
going
spinning around
around
them.
them. I was like, this is a
Yeah,
bit odd.
yeah. That's a bit weird. Yeah. I don't like that. I also don't think that's a very like the best lit scene on that set. Um, like there's so many other scenes like because nighttime scenes are always always lit, like it just looks wrong,
Yeah,
because like obviously you need to be able to see what's going on, so they have to light it a certain way, so there's always like random lights being coming from different directions and you're just like, where's that coming from? Like in reality you wouldn't have that much light, but I think, but it's not even like the best lit one. Like it's the scene with Ramirez and Gordon earlier on in the film is so much
yeah,
better lit.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know. The lighting's a bit inconsistent there, but it's not a big issue for me,
No,
or whatever. Like it's still beautiful, but yeah, I do agree with you. I think it's the weirdest part of the film,
yeah,
just visually. But everything else is so well shot.
yeah.
Even just the simple shots, just the simple reaction shots. There's always just something really. The lighting's really good. The composition of the frame. There's always something going on in each frame. Even if it's just a dull talking scene between Jim Gordon and the mayor. Like it's just framed a certain way. The lighting's just right. It just looks visually interesting.
And the dialogue is great. That for as you call it, the talking scene.
Yeah,
You don't ever want, like, obviously you want to get to the next part, but this is another credit to the pacing and the dialogue. The talking scenes don't feel fucking unbearable in this movie.
yeah. They're not long. Like any scene that involves two characters talking about something. For example, the Harvey Dent scene. The Harvey Dent scene and Jim Gordon kind of after the trial bit where they're just sitting in the office talking. The dialogue's very well written to the point where it's like it just gets to the point,
Mm,
and there's enough kind of like chit chat to make it feel believable, but it also gets to the point quickly that you're in and out of the scene. There's never a dialogue scene that goes off, and dialogue is a difficult thing to write. Like dialogue is there's a reason why I no longer want to write scripts. Like I've written 3 scripts for 3 short films, and from now on, I'm not writing scripts.
yeah.
I'm gonna come up with the story for the film. I'm gonna write out the story, and then I'm gonna get someone else to write the script because dialogue is the worst thing. Because the problem with dialogue is it does, every line has to mean something, it has to advance the story. The problem with that is you've got to find the balance between a natural conversation and that, because you can't have lines of dialogue that don't progress anything, and
Yeah.
that's why dialogue is a very difficult thing to write. And that's why you get oftentimes in a lot of scenes you get just lines of dialogue that you could just cut from the film. You get some dialogue scenes that run that little bit too long because you've got to kind of make it seem like a natural conversation, but it also has to either say something subtext wise, or it has to progress the story forward in some degree, whether it be the main plot of the film or whether it be character arcs.
Yeah.
Every line of dialogue has to do something, and a lot of time in film you get dialogue scenes that don't, because it's a very hard thing to do, and this film really does it properly. And I'm gonna look up the writers. It's written by Christopher Nolan, but also David S. Goyer. David S. Goyer has written, I want to also point out that this film, he also wrote Batman v Superman. So I want to point out that briefly, that, it's not, obviously it's not something you can always balance, because there's a lot of dialogue in Batman v Superman that you could cut. But like in this film, for example, and he actually worked on the entire Dark Knight trilogy, by the way. But he co-wrote. I think it's just the mix of him, because he is a talented writer. Like, even looking at these films that he's written, right? Like, looking at, he did Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. He wrote Man of Steel. He wrote the most... he's got a few duds in there. He's got some Blade movies in there that he's written. He's got Jumper, that movie...
With Richardson and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I think this is that one. Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's got that in there, which I've never seen, by the way, but I've heard it's not great. He's got a Ghost Rider film in there. And most recently, he's been writer on Terminator Dark Fate and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. So, he's got some duds in there. I don't think Batman v Superman is a bad film. It's not a well-written film, so that's why I'm still saying it's a dud for him, but I don't think it's a bad story. I think you could take that story, and I think if you had several more drafts of the script, I think you could have a really good film there. But the facts, it just shows that, we how difficult it is to write the film. And I think working with Christopher Nolan as well, because I think Christopher Nolan's definitely a very talented person. I think that collaboration is definitely what makes this film so good, in terms of its pacing, in terms of its dialogue. It's just good movie, man. I don't know. What do you say? But also, let's talk about something we haven't talked about. We talked about the cast. We talked a bit about Heath Ledger's Joker, James Gordon, and all that. But Christian Bale and Michael Caine, and I'm going to add another one in there, Morgan Freeman.
Oh, yeah, of course. You got to have Lucius Fox in there.
Just... Wow. And, what's funny is I know Batman's voice in this, the decisions made in regards to Batman's voice have become a bit of a meme now. But, it's really not that bad when you listen to it.
I think the worst of it was in the beginning of the film.
Where he's like, I'm not wearing hockey pants.
Yeah, especially if you haven't seen the movie in a while, and maybe you've heard other Batmans in the meantime.
Yeah.
You go back to it and you're, I'm not wearing hockey pants. You're like, okay.
Okay, yeah. It does sound a bit silly at times, but I think it still works really well.
As the movie goes on, it becomes less and less of a problem.
Yeah.
He sort of, he manages to balance a normal... He's less yelling while doing the weird voice and more talking.
Yeah, it's more just talking, yeah. But yeah, it's really cool. And again, I think Christian Bale does a fantastic... honestly, I've always been kind of the opinion that his Bruce Wayne was never that good. But honestly, watching this, I think in this film, and I think a lot of that comes from the first film. I don't think his Bruce Wayne is very good in the first film compared to obviously his, Batman. But I think in this film, I think it's fine. I really have, I think his Bruce Wayne is, and when I say he's Bruce Wayne, I mean the character of Bruce Wayne. I don't mean his actual character when he's not in the Batman suit. I mean the character version of Bruce Wayne, that the character that he plays, the Bruce Wayne that he plays when he's not Batman, and not kind of in that detective mode in the privacy, or just not the version of himself that he is with Alfred, for example, that version of himself that he is to everyone else. I think it's really good in this film. I like it.
It's very strange because when I first watched The Dark Knight, I wasn't big on Batman. He was cool. He was Batman, but
he's Batman. Yeah,
I didn't follow Batman, so Christian Bale was kind of my I would say, my first Batman per
Yeah,
se.
right. Yeah.
So, but having watched and read and seen so much stuff after after watching that trilogy, it amazes me again how little like the regular Bruce Wayne he
Mm.
is. And that's the thing with all the characters, is they're all nothing like their
They're
comic
comic book.
game
They're
adaptations,
yeah.
but they're still, you can still believe it's them.
Yeah, it's like faithful, but it's also original.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying there. Yeah, definitely. But I think, especially is I think, his Bruce Wayne in this compared to his Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, I feel like his Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, like it's not. I don't want to use the words over the top because it's not over the top, but like the one thing that stands out to me is Bruce, like him as a character, is playing Bruce Wayne a bit over the top. Like you see in the scene where in the first film where he's at the restaurant and then he just goes swimming in the fucking fish tank for some reason,
mm.
and you're just like, what, like no one would ever do that. Like it's just weird, and it's very
Almost like
much what
that.
I very much say, like when I say like it's very much that character of however you say that word, of Bruce Wayne, that I think that is definitely down to both acting choices as well as, I think he was making that choice to try and play that a bit out there and a bit over the top,
Yeah,
where in this film Bruce Wayne is he's still very much that kind of like party rich boy, but he's more sensible
yeah,
in this
he
film.
feels like a rich. The first one, you're like, oh, you've got money and you're flaunting it, and you're
You're a
just,
bit of a prick.
yeah,
Like with this film he's like, like he flexes a bit, like in the bit where he's in the restaurant and he's like, oh no, they'll let us do this, I own the place, and then he just flicks his fingers at the waitress and he just like clicks his fingers and he's just like, hey,
yeah,
point out. It's like, okay, you're very much still got that
that rich boy flair.
rich boy flair, but you're also more sensible this time. Like you just see it like both him and at the party later on. Like the most rich boy thing he does is he turns up to his own fundraiser late, that he set up, and he turns up on a fucking helicopter,
That was
and
watching that, and I was like, did he? He was in like the Batcave or the makeshift Batcave earlier that day. Did he just 100% go out to some landing pad, get a helicopter to pick up some girls just to arrive late?
yeah, just to arrive late. Yeah, so it's very much that rich boy thing, but he's not like a prick like he is in the first film. Like he's very sensible. Like
He's
during that,
um he's Iron Man 3 Tony Stark
yeah.
to Iron Man 1 Tony Stark.
Yeah, very much. And I actually like the portrayal of Bruce in this film. And I think, obviously, it's hard to compare it to the next film because the Bruce Wayne we see in that film is very different to what we normally see anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely think, like, this is, yeah, just definitely peak Bruce Wayne as well. Like, it's definitely
Peak
perfect.
everyone.
And I love his bit where he drives the Lamborghini and stops that random guy in the
Yeah,
pickup
he's
truck from
picking up
ramming the
some
side.
dude.
And he's just like, the Count Gordon's just like, oh, that's a brave thing you did. He says, what? Try to run a red light or whatever he says. And he's like,
Do
oh,
you know
and
who
then
he was
he's
transporting? It's like, should I?
yeah, and then he looks at it, and then he's just like, "Oh, do you think I should go to the hospital?" Like I think it's really well done.
Mm.
I also like the bit where he's just not Batman, and he goes to like the police
During the
thing.
parade assassination attempt.
Yeah, and he's
I
just
love
not Bat.
everything about that scene.
Yeah, and I think it's great too. Like, imagine if they weren't blindfolded and he just stormed into the room. They'd be just like, "What the fuck is Bruce Wayne doing here?" But they were blindfolded, all the cops and that. So he was able just to go up to them and just still use his Batman voice, but not worry about being found out. But it was like, could you imagine if they were just tied up and they
Wait, they're probably like, is Bruce Wayne here to assassinate the mayor?
yeah, like what's going on here? It'd be a bit weird, but hey, it works out, doesn't it?
And
Um,
the audio, I will say back on the audio and stuff, j- the amount of tension that ticking egg timer adds
yeah,
the entire
I
thing.
I there's a lot of great tension building in this film, and it's interesting because this film doesn't really have much of a soundtrack. Watching
No,
it,
it's really, you notice that like three of the songs are very similar.
like there is a soundtrack in it, but like a lot of the time that soundtrack is used to build the tension, or something's happened, and then like in the the chasing scenes or whatever you have it. But a lot of this movie, there isn't really much soundtrack going on. It's actually a very quiet movie, and I do actually, what I said earlier, I do have a flaw with this film, and it's actually with all the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I don't know if it extends to his other films, but I'm not a big fan of the sound design. Not sound design, sorry, sound mixing. And I've always found this every time I've ever watched this film, is I have to keep adjusting the audio as the film plays,
See,
because there are bits that are really fucking quiet and bits that are really loud.
I would have to
And
rewatch it in on a TV.
yeah, I assume it'd be different in a cinema.
Yeah, in this movie, I never had that problem. But then again, you hardly ever do with movies. That's
Yeah.
how you know that the sound mixing is
But
really
every
terrible.
every time, and I think The Dark Knight Rises is the biggest offender for this, because I think the sound mixing in that film is terrible. In this film, it's still bad, but it's not as bad, because I know every time I watch Dark Knight Rises, it's annoying because I have to keep turning that fucking volume up all the time, and then I have to turn it down because it just gets so loud all of a sudden.
Because of the music and the highest
Well, not
score.
just the music's like something would just explode for no reason,
Oh
and it
yeah,
would just be like really loud.
when
But
you
like,
brought up the guns earlier, when he was testing the
yeah,
bullets, that was the loudest thing in that cinema, and it
yeah,
actually scared the shit out of me.
yeah. But like the Dark Knight, and and I think that's a problem with these films, and I don't know if it extends. I can't really remember if it extends to other Christopher Nolan films. But it's definitely
No,
something
it's a bit there in Inception.
Yeah,
It
but it's
might.
definitely something I've noticed in these films, and Dark Knight is exactly the same. There are just moments where it's too quiet. It's not as bad as Dark Knight Rises, but like in the dialogue scenes, I was turning up the volume a bit, and then turning it down a little bit throughout the film. So I did have the remote handy to adjust the volume as needed, and I know if we did Dark Knight Rises, I would be doing it a lot in that film. This film, it's not as bad, but it's still like these films could be mixed better, and I think that's the biggest flaw with these films. Is the sound design is fantastic, by the way. Like, just the design, it's so good, but the mixing leaves a bit to be desired, I
Yeah,
think.
I'll say
So that's probably my criticism. That's where my criticism falls
that's
in there.
probably
No movie is perfect.
no.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't really have much to say about this film. Like, we haven't really talked much about the plot and the or any specific scenes, and I don't think there's really any
Like I said,
need
it's not
to.
really a review, and it's 12 years old at this point, so
Yeah,
no
I
one
just
really
think
needs us to rehash the plot.
yeah, it's just a really good, well-made film all round, with great character arcs, great cinematography, great acting. Like, this is definitely the peak of this cast. Um, And by the way, this cast is great even in the next film, but I think this is peak Christian Bale. I think in these
Mm.
films, not talking about Christian Bale in anything else. I just mean in these films specifically when it
Yeah,
comes to his portrayal of all the elements of this character.
he does
This is
such a good
peak.
job at it.
Yeah, this is the peak performance. Like, in Dark Knight Rises, I would definitely say it's not as good. And in Batman Begins, it's not as good either. Like, I think this is the peak
Yeah,
of this performance. And when I say not as good, I don't mean bad, by the way.
no,
It's
it's
far
not.
from bad, but
Everything in
oh,
the movie seems to have just come to a fine point.
it
Everything,
just seems like everyone was on the same page and everyone
yeah,
just knew what was going on. And it's actually so refreshing to watch a film where everything just works.
yeah,
You know, where with a lot of other superhero films or even just films in general nowadays as well, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of like, or like bad performances that are a result of either the actor not being on the same page as the director, or just creative differences and stuff. Like, you even
yeah.
see it with films like, obviously, Dark Knight, not Dark Knight, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, all of those films, Justice League. It just, no one's on the same page when making those films.
Mm.
It just seems like the actors aren't quite on the same page as the director. I think not so much with Batman v. I think Batman v Superman, I think there was just some certain visions that didn't quite line up. But in terms of like Bruce Wayne and Batman, I think Ben Affleck and who directed Zack Snyder, I think they were definitely on the same page in regards to the performance. And I do think, compared to this, I do think Ben Affleck is still a superior performance if we're talking about all the aspects of the character.
See, I find that a bit difficult to judge because, like I said earlier, they feel like different characters.
They do, and like I know Ben Affleck has the whole killing thing, and I think a lot of that comes from also Zack Snyder's. But if we're just talking about portrayal of Batman and portrayal of Bruce Wayne, I think Ben Affleck's the one that yeah, I think after watching this film, it's kind of hard, but I think just as an overall package, in specifically Batman v Superman, not in Justice League, I think it's a much more well-rounded package overall, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But I think this movie is definitely close. Like, I think with all the other movies, there's always a bit of a disconnect between the portrayal of Batman and the portrayal of Bruce Wayne. By even so far as back to the Tim Burton films. I think there's this weird disconnect between the Batman and the Bruce Wayne, where with I think Dark Knight and I think with Batman v Superman, they just work together. There's just this kind of like, there's kind of like this package, yeah.
It feels
that
they are the same person for once, whereas you watch let's go back to the Tim Burton one. Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne doesn't feel like he's the same person as Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah. And it's definitely the same with the later films as well in that series. But yeah, I definitely think the package is so like I still think Ben Affleck's superior, but I think if we were to say compare like, and I'm not talking specifically about Batman's and all that, but like if we were to compare this film and that film, I think that would be pretty much close to being the best interpretation of all the aspects of the character at once. I don't know. I just like Ben Affleck. I like Batfleck a lot in Batman v Superman, specifically in that film, and not in Justice League.
But I also think that he was the better part of that film. Sorry,
he definitely was. Like I definitely would watch a Batman movie with him. Like I think like to say Ben Affleck's a bad Batman is just a fucking joke because he's really fucking good. It's just like there is some creative decisions that.
Weird.
But a lot of that's more the director and not so much him.
Yeah.
Like, I think his portrayal of that really works. And, like, even his portrayal, like, they talk about how, Batman doesn't kill and this Batman's killing. Even though Zack Snyder likes to insist it's implied killing, but it's very much killing. He still plays it really well. Like, it's definitely still, like, I believe... Like, I mean, I don't know if people disagree, but, like, when I watch that film, I believe that this version of Batman... at this current point in time of his life where he's at, I believe it. Like, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't go against the character, in my opinion, because Batman has killed before plenty of times. Like, to say that he doesn't kill is...
It wasn't
like,
until, the 70s where it really kicked up.
Dude, he used to carry fucking guns. Go back and look at the early thing. He has fucking... guns and shit. Like, he's killing people.
That's more modern first ever since the comic book society was like, no, you need to...
Like, I mean, a lot of people take... Like, I mean, yes, he has a no-killing rule, and that's kind of code, and that's what this film plays with, like talking about that. That's the whole point of what Joker's trying to do in this film, is to trying to get him to break that rule.
And I felt like such a dumbass until last night, or after last night. I finally caught on that the Joker won.
Yeah, the Joker won because he killed.
I was also going, he didn't kill the Joker. He didn't win. And then finally, the final scene, I'm like, he killed Harvey Dent.
Yeah,
The
he
Joker
straight
actually won.
And what I like about that too is it comes back to the whole thing. The Joker's whole plan is to break down the public perception of Harvey Dent. To break the Joker, he wants to just destroy it. And at the end of the film, and this is what I love, is that, it's the whole ending of the film is all about this sacrifice that Batman makes to maintain Harvey Dent's image.
Mm.
Because, all the stuff Harvey Dent did in that last part of the film isn't public knowledge. You know, like, it's not public knowledge that he went and killed those cops, those corrupt cops. It's not public knowledge that he kidnapped the family, Gordon's family, and,
Which I never realized
whatever.
Barbara was a part of before. You only ever see the son, and
Yeah, you never see Barbara at all, but she's
there in
there.
the final.
Even in that scene, she's there, but you never see her face or anything. She's just kind of huddled up. It's weird. But like, I mean, it is very much, to protect that image, and like, Batman's not just hunted, but he's considered a villain almost. Like, by the time we get to Dark Knight Rises, it's been, how much years is it? It's what, 9 years, 12 years, 8 years, something like that. And Batman hasn't existed for that amount of time, just simply because he can't. Like, he can't physically
He's wanted
do
now.
his thing. Yeah, he's a wanted man, and all of that. And then he obviously does make his comeback, but like,
The public
everyone,
doesn't like him anymore.
yeah, like, and
Makes
that the
things
whole
worse.
the whole point of that was to stop everything that, because Harvey Dent did a lot of good. In this film they make it very clear that, if Harvey Dent's, name is just gone, like, all the good he's done, all the criminals that he's will be set free, and it will all be for nothing. And so at the end of the film, like, even at the end of the film, Jim Gordon talks about, how, well, there's no hiding it anymore because the police are surrounding the building. They're going to raid in a second, going to find, what happens. And then so Batman's like, no, we need his image to maintain, because otherwise shit's gonna happen. And that's what, I guess, leads to that, 8 years of, I guess, peace, I guess, is that legacy left behind by Harvey Dent. That's
The,
it is a legacy that is left behind by him because of all the stuff he's done, but it's also fabricated.
yeah, which is
And
mirrored by Jim in Dark Knight Rises when he can't look at the parade for Harvey
yeah,
when he because he knows about what Two
what
Face.
happened? Yeah, and like, Two-Face isn't even in this film much. Like, I mean,
Oh,
as Two-Face, like, it's really only a couple of scenes, but it's great, and it's actually interesting. You think about this film, like, even Joker isn't really in it that much when you really think about it, because, like, you can, like, he's got his big scenes, and then he kind of just appears on, like, a camcording or a camcorder or whatever, or you hear him by voice or whatever. Like, he's not in the film a hell of a lot when you really break it down and think about it. And I like that. I like that, his scenes are so iconic and so memorable and so captivating that you get the feeling that he's in a lot of the film when
it's
you
just
really put,
it's the effect of him that's there.
yeah. And when you really put those scenes back to back, he's not in it. Like, this film's a 2-hour film or whatever, and he's not in it that much amount of time. It's great. I love it. Yeah.
There's really just a few highlights of the film would are like the tension, like you said. Um, but it's also
There's that little track that plays every time the Joker's on screen,
sort of
and
thing.
and it's just like this slow build up of, like, this, like, violin screeching sound kind of thing that just slowly builds up and builds over a course of time. And it's usually whenever he's telling his little story, or, like,
Then when it comes to the end, it has like that big let out sound.
yeah.
I like that track. It's a really nice track, and it's really
It's really good. And that's what I mean. Like, there's not that much actual soundtrack in this film, because a lot of it is just either that track or it's silence, or when shit's actually going down, there's, like, the Dark Knight theme playing, or, like, a variation on that almost.
like I think the aftermath of events in the film are really done well. Um,
Mm.
for instance, one of my favorite scenes in the movie after the rewatch last night is something that left an effect on me. Is first of all, I never realized when Harvey's talking to the mayor or Gordon's talking to the mayor, whoever was talking to the mayor in the office,
Yeah.
Gordon. No, it was Harvey. And the body drops down to the
Oh,
window,
yeah.
and like you're not expecting it, and it is played as sort of a jump scare. But
It
then the
is.
tension from the moments afterwards, it was weirdly reverse tension where you're watching everyone go back into a state of panic. There wasn't a build up to it, it happened, and now we're watching everything else happen.
Yeah, it's again like it's really well done. It's really well paced, and all the elements go together. I would like to wrap this up now,
Yeah,
though.
we there's
There's really not much. Like, I mean, we haven't really talked a lot about the specifics, really, in terms of like, the plot or anything. And I don't think there's any need to. Like, we just kind of talked about things we like in this film, and that's going to be kind of the format, I guess, for this.
yeah,
I guess kind of segment on the show we do whenever we need a filler segment is we'll just kind of talk about something for a bit. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to say if you haven't seen Dark Knight, go watch it because you've seen it. I mean, look, it made $1 billion. You've seen this film,
and
but I definitely would recommend going back. I think, and I definitely this has actually piqued my interest in also going back and rewatching the whole trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to right now. I might save it for a bit, but it's just an interesting look back at like the time before superhero films, before the
they're
MCU,
the archetype
before
of what
everything.
a superhero film should be. Like most
Yeah,
films all have a thing, and then DC films are trying to match Marvel films. It was back
yeah.
when you didn't have to match up to what your rival was doing.
It just existed. It
Yeah,
just you had the X-Men films that were doing their thing. You had
there
the
was no.
Spider-Man films that were doing their thing, and then you had this. Like you literally had no other superhero. I mean, I guess you had like when I say superhero movies, I mean superhero movies. I don't mean comic book movies necessarily because there was like Blade and all those other films that kind of came out. But like in terms of superhero films, it was really this. X-Men whenever they were releasing X-Men films.
Well, they're I think
And the set
2006.
yeah, and then the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film. Like that's really all it was. And I think the biggest other thing I can think of would have been Smallville. Like Smallville on TV was really the only other big comic book superhero thing
If
at the
you
time.
wanted your comic book kick, you watched Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, exactly. And then you went and watched The Dark Knight. It
And
made $1 billion.
yeah,
The highest grossing film of 2008. But yeah, no, it's such a good movie, and like this is, I think, also one you can just take out and just watch.
yeah.
Like you don't need to you necessarily watch the trilogy as a whole. Like this film really works just on its own really
Like
well.
the only context you would ever need from Batman Begins is the
Batman Begins.
Begins is really just Rachel, really, to explain their prior relationship and that whole
Yeah.
relationship segment. But
But then it comes back like there is lines of dialogue in this film to establish that as well.
yeah,
Like there's the bit where Harvey's like, talking about talking to Alfred, and Alfred's like, oh like he's like, oh, you've known Rachel her whole life, and they kind of do establish they've been
I need to
friends.
know about.
Yeah. Like you don't need to watch Batman Begins to watch this movie.
Like what? You don't need Dark Knight Rises to cap it off.
No, it just works on its own, and I think this is definitely one I'll definitely rewatch a lot more than the other two.
Yes,
I think just because I think this one's so good.
it really-
But yeah, that's the Dark Knight. Yeah, it made $1 billion. It's one of the most iconic superhero movies of all time, and it's a good fucking movie. And if you haven't watched it in like 8 years, like I have, maybe give it a go. Like maybe 2020. You're not doing anything. You're isolated. You probably have coronavirus as well. So why not just sit down and watch The Dark Knight for a bit? Why not?
it's good shit.
That's what I say. And even if you don't have coronavirus and you're not isolated,
Still watch it.
get coronavirus, get yourself isolated, and watch it. Or go and see it in the cinemas if your cinema just happens to be playing it. Why not? But yeah, that'll do for this film, I think. I think we should wrap it up here. So next episode, we're probably I haven't really planned next episode yet in the sense that like exactly what we're doing, but the Avengers beta at the time of recording this, the Avengers beta comes out this weekend for PS4, so I'll be playing a bit of that. I don't know, Lewin, if you will be.
Not working Sunday, so if you would like to
I'm
team,
working Sunday, but I could do Sunday night.
yeah, let's team up Sunday night. Let's do that.
All right, we'll do that. But yeah, we'll bring you our impressions of the beta, and depending on when we record it, the game might be out. So who knows? We might do just impressions in general. And in fact, we might just do that just in general. If the game's out, But most of our impressions will come from the beta that we are about to play this weekend. And then if the game's out and we've had a chance to sink a few hours into it, we could talk about that. But we've also got some films coming out this month. We've got Wonder Woman is coming out, New Mutants is coming out, so we may, if we can't fill in a whole episode with Avengers, if we don't have, yeah, that's going to be the end of that.
Yeah, we may
as usual, you
do
can
that.
find, we've actually got a Turning Point Instagram now. I haven't posted on it yet, but I am going to start posting on it soon, hopefully. But you've got that. That'll be maybe in the link to the description below. You've got my Instagram, my film Instagram, and my gaming Instagram. They're all going to be down below. Lewin doesn't have anything, so we're just going to, yeah. But I also have a new video out. I mentioned it before, but if you are still listening and you want to head on over to if you want to head on over to my YouTube channel, you can find a cool little 10-minute video on Battlefront 2 mods, or maybe it's 15 minutes. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, that's all pretty exciting stuff. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. Yeah. I hope you enjoy all the new logos and music and shit. I don't know. You can take us out now. That's all I have to say.
Does this count as our review of Joker?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Wonderful.
Why not? We'll probably circle, when we do eventually talk about Joker, we'll probably circle back to the Dark Knight, I'm sure, at some point. But yeah, anyway.
This has been this.
This has been this.
Our filler episodes always tend to go longer than our normal episodes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, all our episodes seem to be about the same amount, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Like he said, I've got nothing. He's got everything. Catch us next time.
Alright. Catch us later.
Bye.